All right, welcome guys to a brand new episode of the Poker Player podcast. I'm your host, Andreas, and today I'm joined by the GTO commentator upcoming in the industry, Henry Kilbane. Has recently been on a final table of the WSOP. How are you doing, Henry? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for the introduction, man. I'm really well. I was a bit tired. I was playing cash until the early hours of this morning, but managed to rest up before coming on the show. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I mean, you basically just get back in the cash grind after being on that final table and finishing fourth, I think, in a 550. How was that experience on the final table, and how did it change your attitude towards poker from before and after? Did you feel like any large differences?
Well, firstly, I just ran so well. Like from the moment I sat down day one, I think I bagged like close to chip lead out of 8 flights from all of the day ones. It was just absolute cruise control to the final table. Obviously not having like any experience with MTTs and coming from like a live cash background and also like a PLO background. I think looking back, I definitely made like 3 really big mistakes on the final table. But all I'm taking away from it is the positives at the moment. Like you can look at, I could have potentially made 50,000 euros more, if I had jammed in this spot or if I had like bet smaller on this turn or whatever. But the reality is it's my 3rd live tournament in a year and a half. I've only recently started studying MTTs with my flatmates. So to kind of get that score, first live tournament of 2020 and to come forth in a WPT, like 1,000 runner field, I'm over the moon, regardless of the fact that, I could have made 50K more, but that's poker in a nutshell, right? There's always, even in cash sessions, like, if I didn't play that hand, I would have finished up like 1,000 euros more. I'm just taking the positives away from it at the moment, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, Andreas in the chat is also mentioning that you're actually joining us from a small dark cabin as the GTO commentator. You're at the Kings in the commentator booth, isn't that true?
Yeah, this is where I spent 750 hours last year in the commentary booth behind. So for the I don't know if you've watched any of the streams, but there's a big electronic screen behind the table, and that's where I'm tucked in this little soundproof booth. So yeah, I'm used to being in here.
Yeah, certainly something we want to talk about here on the podcast, how we got into commentary later. But first I want to ask you, how did you start poker all at the beginning? Like how did you get into the game at first? And then how long was that ago?
Throw me right back. So yeah, I'll bring it back a little bit before I started poker. I came home from school in London one day and my parents said we're moving to Bulgaria. And about 2 weeks before I turned 14, we moved to Bulgaria. And although I learned the language pretty quickly, it was evident, very early on that I was falling behind at school. And I went from someone who, would always do their homework on time and would only try and get A+ or A stars to becoming a very lazy student because of the language barrier. And after about a year and a half, I just started skipping lessons and going to the internet cafe to play Counter-Strike, basically. And it was there that I, saw a couple of the older kids from the final year, like year 12, playing this it was like a 3-card draw game with it was like a 10-cent bringing. And, I used to get 3-4 euros a day for school. And they were like, oh, hey, Henry, leave the computer alone. Come and join us. And they taught me how to play this 3-card draw game. And then, after getting to know them a bit better, it turned out that they knew what Texas Hold'em was. And I had been dabbling with Texas Hold'em on Zinger Poker for obviously no money at the age of 15.
Sure.
And yeah, just kind of fell into it. And after about playing with these guys for about 6 months and, skipping classes, I built up a 350, 400 euro bankroll. And I really got I just got hooked. I did I remember like just knowing that a royal flush was a good hand, and I think that's what everyone knew. Like they're like, okay, royal flush is the best hand. We didn't know anything else about the game. But then when I started like regularly winning against this lineup, I asked an older friend of mine to deposit money onto an online account, and I think I lost all of it within like 90 minutes or so. I was down to like my final $10, and
Wow.
and then I regged an 880 turbo back in the day where first prize was like 3K, and ended up just shipping it. And then with my 5 buy-ins, so my $3,000, I was jumping into like 3-6 no limit hold'em and 400 PLO, and obviously dusted it off pretty quickly, which was obviously one of the first lessons I ever learned about bankroll management. And yeah, they went back to my 5 cent, 10 cent game, and rebuilt for like a year and a half, 2 years, and yeah, that was it basically. I left school when I was 16, told my parents that I want to pursue poker, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, so these 2 times were basically like the first time almost being all in for your entire bankroll, then shipping the $8 tournament, and then going into cash games, and then really dumping all your money. How much has that contributed to your poker game, I guess, today, years later? Do you think that has kept you from going all in with your bankroll again, and made you a lot more solid when it comes to managing your money?
I wish it had. To be completely honest with you, I think even after getting super lucky and winning a turbo tournament, to then like be rewarded with that amount of money at the time, I wish I could have said that after winning that money I was grinding $2 MTTs and built up a roll from there. But I didn't. I dusted it off, because when I was younger I had this, like, my mindset was like, right, let's get as rich as possible as quickly as possible without any discipline. Let's just jump into the deep end, and like whatever happens. And obviously that's just not the approach that you should be taking with poker. And I had that approach for about a good 4 years, even up until like the age of 20, 21. My life roll was always less than 10K because my bankroll management was just terrible, because all I had in my mind was my parents aren't going to accept me playing this game for a living unless I can show them, 6 figures in a bank account. Unless I can show them, hey, mum, I'm 20 years old. Look, I've got 50K in my bank account. I knew that they wouldn't care if I only had 4, 5, 6K bankroll, which the reality is I would have been very happy with a 6K bankroll at the age of 18. It would have been a good starting point.
Yeah,
But
of course.
I was just degenning hard for 4 years, and I'm glad, now I'm 25. I'm maybe too disciplined. I feel like maybe I'm too much of a nit when it comes to my bankroll management. But I think that's just like a bit of overkill from where 4 years ago I was just, the polar opposite of being in it.
Yeah, I mean, a good adjustment though. Do you think that if it hadn't been for that $8 bank, you could actually not be in poker? Or do you think there's like some of the survivorship bias there that I actually recently talked about in one of my videos, where the winners kind of get selected and manage to be able to continue playing poker, or would you have just always gotten back to the game? I mean, after you've lost that in a cash game, you still went back at it, right? And rebuilt it basically. So you think that wouldn't have stopped you, right?
I don't think it would have stopped me, because at that point, by the time that I actually won that and then lost it, I think I'd actually dropped out of school, or maybe it might have been like a couple of months before I actually decided to quit school, which obviously didn't go down very well with the family at all. But it was like I was going to school and maybe going to first lesson, and then the rest of the day I was just in the internet cafe playing either poker or this draw game that we were playing, or just playing Counter-Strike like an absolute nerd. So I had kind of already made up my mind that I wanted to pursue poker, because coming from a poor family, like, money always spoke to me, which I'm glad now it doesn't. But I used to see someone like wearing a Rolex or driving a nice car. I'd be like, hey, I want to know that guy, without even thinking about whether he's a respectful person, whether he's like good at what he does. It was just like, okay, if he's got a nice watch or he's got a nice car, I want to be like him, regardless of how he got that nice watch or nice car. So I was very driven by that, maybe for the wrong reasons. In fact, definitely for the wrong reasons. But I'm glad to have kind of, got back on the right path now. And, I think I'm in the game for the right reasons now.
Okay. Your family, you said that at the beginning you just wanted to basically prove to them that you could do it, that you could build a six-figure role. How was their support at the beginning? And you mentioned it before we started going live. How has it changed to today?
Well, my parents now are my #1 fans. I absolutely love them to bits. Like they're all like, even on the final, like when I made day 3 and I was chip leader at day 3, and I was telling my parents and oh, fingers crossed, babe, let us know how it's going. And, they'll watch the stream, but they don't have a clue. They don't even know what a pair is. They don't know what ace high is. They don't understand any of it. But they were watching and like texting me throughout the day, and I'm so happy with their support now. But I know, I would like to think when I have kids, as a poker player, I obviously wouldn't mind them playing poker. But for a family or parents that have no concept of the skill involved, the luck factor, all they see is that you're sitting down playing for money. They think roulette, they think bingo, they think blackjack. And they're like, you're just out at the casino at, underage. You're getting into casinos at underage. You're hanging out with 40-plus-year-old guys, that have got tons of money, and you're not hanging out with your other 17-year-old friends. Like, of course, like I completely understand why they weren't supportive of it. And that's why I was just like so focused on making as much money as possible at the time. Maybe had they been supportive, maybe I would have been a bit more disciplined with my bankroll management at first, and just kind of grinded it up gradually. But hey, I'm glad I was a degen for a few years, because it's definitely helped with my game now, and it's definitely helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah, I think the family support and the lack of family support is going to be a huge influence on some of the poker players' careers early on, at least, and then also later. And the struggles that you're facing early on when playing poker, and to overcome that, like your parents cannot keep you from those failures, right? And they sometimes try, and this is also why they don't want you in poker, because most of the time they're thinking of roulette, bingo, or whatever, and that you're basically just losing all your money. And then, they want to obviously keep you from that pain. But in poker, a lot of the times, I think you have to go through phases of pain, of losing and of making mistakes. And if you don't make those mistakes, then how are you going to learn? Like, there's very rarely any person that I've talked to in poker that has never gone through those early struggles and trying to build a role and just ran it up and never basically when going buster. Like, I've not gone buster myself. I've always been very conservative with bankroll management. I'm probably less conservative today. I've probably gone the opposite direction, that I'm like becoming more aggressive with like taking shots, taking my chances. And I had to work on that because also of my background of my parents and them like really caring about money, and especially my mother, trying to be more the conservative end when it comes to managing money as well. But yeah, over time you develop and you learn from your mistakes, and that's just so important to a poker player. So when you have built that role again, at what point did you say, well, I'm going to also do this poker thing and I'm going to start traveling? Because you were from the UK and then you moved to Bulgaria with your family, but then at some point you started traveling. Like, when was that?
That was, what are we now, 2020? That was 2015. I started traveling. And again, like with the bankroll management that I had back then, I actually went to Atlantic City with a 5K bankroll. So like between the age of like 18 and 20, my parents kind of gave me a bit of an ultimatum. They said, listen, you either move out if you want to continue pursuing poker, you either leave home or you get a job. And being like 18, I was like, well, look, I'm not going to move out. Okay, I'll get a job. And I was literally working in a bar. I was also like stacking shelves in a supermarket, and I would get paid weekly. So on Sunday, I'd get paid. The money would go into my bank account. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I would be down the casino, but my parents would think I was at work, and I was playing like 1-2. And it was during like that 2-year period that I built up like a bit of a role. I mean, it's basically just like getting paid from work kind of thing. And then I told them that I was going on a road trip. Well, I actually did go on a road trip in America. Went to Atlantic City with a 5K roll and just hit the ground running. Jumped into a 2-5K with like 10 buy-ins, and you know, span it up to about 40K in a week. And then obviously from there, this like when I've got a really good friend, A.L. Benjamin, who always needles me, and he just goes, listen, you run good at life. And he's not wrong. Like, I could have been broke so many times, and I don't know why the poker gods, you know, have just like, they just keep throwing me a bone, and they're like, all right, Henry, you're going to jump into this 2-5 game with 10 buy-ins. How about, you know, you just go on the run of a lifetime and make 40K or whatever it is, you know, in a week? Because it's just unheard of. It's literally unheard of. And that's what happened. I was playing at the Borgata in Atlantic City for about a week and a half, and I just sat down with my first $500. First session, I made about 9K. And then from there on out, it was just same shit, different day. And then came back to Europe, obviously with a role. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm a professional poker player now. You know, I've got a bit of money to my name. So I called up a bud of mine who's also a professional poker player, but he was an actual professional poker player. I was just like pretending to be one. And I was like, yo, whereabouts are you? Where do you want to go? He's like, oh, well, there's this festival in Bulgaria. And I was like, great, I'll be able to catch up with some friends. The weather's nice. So we went to Bulgaria, and there was like this small festival running at the time. And this lady like came over to me. She was in charge of like the marketing for this festival. She said, hey, like, would you mind us doing an interview with you? And I was like, okay, sure. I was like, I don't know why you want to interview me, but yeah, okay. And I, again, just got super lucky. They uploaded the interview to YouTube. I then got invited about 3 months later back to the same festival, but this time to commentate, because they like found out that I was from the UK. They, you know, apparently I have a good voice for commentary and have a rough idea of what I'm doing at the poker tables. So like, hey, maybe you're a good person to call out the action. And, you know, what, 3 years later, I've practically got residence at King's Resort. I've been invited to cover so many events now, and it's just been I've been so fortunate. I've just had the right people vouch for me. They've really put their necks out on the line to give me a shot at it. And hopefully, you know, I continue doing what I'm doing, and people seem to be happy with what I'm doing at the moment. The support has been overwhelming for the last like 3 years as well, from everyone, literally from everyone. So yeah, man, I'm just going with the flow.
I want to actually expand on that a little bit. People are usually not aware of like how luck contributed in their career, and that's already a very good point that you can bring this up for yourself, because yes, most people can't. But then also, what do you think that you actually contributed with your own skills? Because, well, what if you say like everything's about luck, like what was your own skill that was involved? You certainly cannot neglect that part, can you?
I appreciate that. I've always been my own biggest critique, and it's very easy to look at the luck factor involved, because of the swings in how my life has changed based off like really small pieces of luck. So like Atlantic City, going to Bulgaria with my friend, getting interviewed, then being invited back by this small festival who literally, whenever they went live, they had about 20 viewers on Twitch. It was a little festival, you know, and someone just so happened to stumble across it. And then I got a phone call from Unibet. I then got a phone call for WSOP Europe. And within 8 months, I'm covering 100K super high rollers, and I can't even beat 2-5 yet, kind of thing. Yeah. So there was a lot of luck involved. But since getting lucky, I would like to think that the reason I'm still here and doing what I do is because I'm really good at networking. You know, we were just talking before we went live, you know, I'm not the type of regular to just sit down in a 10-10 PLO game with my hoodie and my headphones on. I'm engaging with these rich recreational players. You know, they're very successful in life, and I want to learn from them. I'm a young person. You know, these guys are crushing life outside of poker for a reason. And just because someone isn't necessarily good at poker, it doesn't mean they're stupid. And that seems to be something that a lot of regulars think. They're like, hey, if this guy's not winning at poker, he must be the dumbest guy alive, kind of thing, because poker's easy. Yeah, it's easy for some people. But for me, I see every opportunity at the poker table when I sit down, not only to make money, but to network, make connections, you know, and it's helped me so much with commentary and with poker and life in general.
I think that networkability and also the influence of luck is a very interesting topic. And I think that you might have mentioned luck before, but then there's also the accumulation of potential outcomes that happens whenever you are basically going somewhere, and you've been traveling a lot. Coincidences, they have to do with luck, they will happen. Sure. And if what you experienced didn't happen, then something else could have happened as well. So you don't know all the other potential outcomes that could have happened to you if you, for example, if you didn't go to Bulgaria that year. Maybe from Borgata you went, or from Atlantic City you went to another place, and there something else could have happened. You know, you never know those other potential outcomes. And you know, if you give yourself the chance enough times, eventually something will happen. And maybe you've had a phase before those, you know, coincidences where actually nothing happened, and maybe there you didn't get lucky, and you don't see those. So I think the multiple perspectives that you can have on events in your life is something that's almost impossible for the human brain to pull off. Like, you just can't see every single day and like all the potential outcomes. I think that's so interesting, and what could happen, and you know, what was on you to basically give yourself a shot for something to happen. That I think is something that fascinates me almost the most.
That's like a deep rabbit hole you're going down there, Andreas, man. Like that's like literally taking everything that's happened to me and thinking, oh well, you know, from Atlantic City, if I'd gone to Vegas, maybe I would have 4 bracelets to my name right now, kind of thing. Yeah, you know? It's insane to think.
You never know.
Right.
Or you would have, you know, what could have happened, for example, I'm just basically making the picture. Maybe you could have gone to Vegas, met a certain poker player that actually then had a huge influence on your game. And instead of you then playing No Limit or PLO, you would have gone into tournaments. Maybe you could have met like a huge tournament rag, and somehow you just connected and you basically learn a lot from that person. And then your career just takes another turn. The people that are around us, they have such a huge influence on us, and we are often not aware of it. And I think that's also happened to you in the end, in where you went with commentary. You just met those people, and then eventually you started commentating on the Kings, and you were just the right person, and people connected with you, and then you gave yourself the chance to actually pull this off, right? And go that direction and stream, I think, or commentate about 800 hours almost, you mentioned, right? At the Kings.
Yeah, that was just last year alone. Like, it was pretty insane. But yeah, for sure. I think like, you could probably ask every single poker player in the world, you know, if there's one person that stands out, or maybe not one person, maybe a few people, you know, poker players that they've met. A lot of people, you know, will say, yeah, it was my grandparents. They taught me how to play stud when I was 7 years old, and whatever it is. There's always a few people that you meet along the way on this journey throughout life and through poker that you look back on and you think, wow, like, if I hadn't, you know, asked to grab a beer with that person, or if they hadn't invited me over to their table to say hello, you know, what would my life be now? And life's just weird, man. It really is. It's when I look back at, like, for me, meeting actually 2 Unibet ambassadors, David and Dara Kearney, who really vouched for me. They didn't really even know me. They'd only met me once at this small festival, and then invited me to do the Unibet event. Then Dara, obviously being an MTT crusher, he's been around for a decade in the poker scene, maybe even longer. has multiple connections within the industry, and then you've got me, this new pleb who doesn't really know anyone, and he's like, oh, hey, Henry did some commentary at Unibet. Do you want him to come and cover the World Series of Poker Europe? And by him vouching for me, I then got that opportunity. Fortunately, you know, like my end, I didn't fuck up. They were happy with how I performed, and I got invited back. And yeah, it's just insane to look back and think, wow, you know, if I hadn't met that person, then where would I be today?
Yeah, that's certainly something that you know, just a few people that have influenced or have influenced your path in the poker industry can just make the outcome so much different. But what I also wanted to pick on is your comment about being at the live poker table and interacting with businessmen and all the other professional poker players, recreational poker players that are maybe less successful than those mentioned businessmen. How do you think this all started, and how did you develop the metric of like not seeing people as how well they play poker?
I'm going to call some people out here. I despise regs that treat people based off of their poker skills. And I'm not just talking about regs the way they treat recreationals. I'm talking about how regs treat other regs as well. You know, you get a lot of people who are very good at poker, but poker is all they know. And because that's all they know, maybe, you know, they lack certain other human traits that are necessary to succeed in life, like empathy, humility, basic things like this. And it's definitely a lot of ego, because, you know, when you're that good at something, and you know that you're that good at something because you've got the results, you know, you've walked the walk, and then you see someone else trying to achieve what you've already achieved, it's very easy to just be like, hey, listen, man, you know, I'm the guy. I've got over 500k cashes on my hand and mob. You know, I've got over 1 million in online cashes, kind of thing. Like, this is what I'm telling you to do, so you have to listen to me. And I've never had that approach. I've always, like, I was taught from a young age, you know, you're born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. And it's something that I've taken throughout life. And you'll be amazed to find out what you can learn from these people that, like you already mentioned, hey, they're losing players in 10-10 and 25-25 PLO, but they've built multi-million-dollar or euro empire companies outside of poker. So how about, instead of judging that guy because, you know, he's spewing 5k every session, maybe having a chat with him and say, hey man, how did you get into investing? Like, or how did you get into property management? Because for me, I don't see myself being a poker player at the age of 40. What I'm going to do, I don't know yet. Like, I have a couple of ideas, but I don't want to like speculate. It's so far away. So by learning from these people, I'm benefiting in a massive way. And also, this is a bit maybe like spiteful, but it's good for your edge at the table. I've also found that when I've made these connections with these guys, so firstly, they got more money than me, so they don't care about running these animalistic bluffs against certain people, because they don't care about 10,000 euros. I do. 10,000 euros is like, what, 20% of my bankroll. So what I have found is, by befriending these people at the table, they'll check down rivers where they should go for value. You know, they won't run a bluff with like the nut heart blocker or with 3 hearts on the board because it's me that, oh, Henry, you know, I like you, Henry. So it helps my win rate a lot by networking with these people as well. It's an interesting psychological element. It's, you know, when someone, go on.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there, but I think I want to just point that out. Like, this is something I underestimated all my career. Like, there's been people at the live poker table that I did not realize they actually just liked me as a guy, and they just didn't want to run huge bluffs on me. Like, I've certainly like called some people down and like, you know, I got this hand here and I just never folded this hand ever. And then, you know, I can still maybe beat a value bet or two. And then there's just all these other value bet hands that they could have. I mean, maybe not even that many combinations in No Limit Hold'em. But you know, because they went into such a narrow node in poker, they're just always going to have those stronger value bets. And they would, not bluff, relentlessly or ruthlessly. and B, they want value bet thinly. And if they don't do neither, that where at their range are they going to be? They're going to be at the top of their range.
It makes it very easy for you. Yeah.
They're freaking nuts, and that's certainly some way I could have made a lot better decisions at the live poker table, achieve a higher win rate, but just finding that fold against somebody who just was at the top of the range like most of the time because of social dynamics. And I think that's something I've gotten better over the last few years, and like recognizing the situations and how people were playing against you. I think that's just something that comes also with experience. But it's a great point that you're making there. Super good.
With live poker, I honestly think that is one of the most important things that you can bring to the table. Like, I don't want to break down a hand history, but like the biggest pot that I won last year was against an owner of a casino. It wasn't Leon, don't worry. But he owns a casino in London, in Mayfair. Very wealthy businessman. You know, he crushes life, and he gifted me €8,000. It was an absolute donation, and he admitted it afterwards. And I still speak with him. But after the hand, I swear to God, he said to me as I'm dragging in the biggest pot of my life, I'm trying not to shake because I'm the only reg at the table. And he had already pointed it out. He was like, "Oh, you play poker for a living, huh?" Because the rest of the lineup were just there for a good time. You know, they were all like there were a few investors and some bankers and like casino owners. So when he called me out and said, "Oh, you play poker for a living," I was kind of nervous. I was like, "Oh shit," kind of thing. Like, I'm going to probably have to leave this game now that he's like said that, because although it was obvious to everyone else, having that stated at the table can make it a bit uncomfortable. But then when he said that, I was like, "Yeah, man." And I told him my backstory. You know, coming from a poor family, and you know the way that my parents managed money so well and taught us the importance of money. And I explained that to him, and I said, "That's why I'm playing poker, because I don't want my children, you know, to have the same issues that my family had when I was growing up." And when I told him that, and then after that, like about an hour later, I won the biggest pot of the year last year against him. He goes, "Henry, is that for your children's college fund?"
Wow.
And I said, "Yeah, man." And he shook my hand, and he just took it like an absolute champ. And for the rest of the week, every time he saw me, he would go out of his way to come and say, "Hey man, how you been running? How you doing? You know, like, how's things going?" And it just felt so good, you know, to just have that relationship with these guys, you know, and treat them with the level of respect that they're used to being treated in their area, in their industry, because they are the best at what they do. That's all they want. They just want a bit of respect at the table. They know that they're not the best. They know that they're losing players in these games. Sure. All they want is a little bit of respect from these young kids with their headphones, their hoodies on, and it will just do wonders for your game. It really will.
There's so many points that I could pick up on, and you know, there's certainly how do you say that? I certainly feel ambiguous about some of the stories that you have basically told me now, and that's, you know, from a poker player's perspective, like if you love the game and if you just want to play poker well, these social dynamics, they kind of change the game and what good poker should be like and what bad poker should be like. And then, you know, all these additional social factors that are changing like the game, and that, you know, you should engage in order to, and there's really, this is kind of weird, you know, to basically, you know, you're doing that maybe on I would assume on an authentic level, right? And like telling like your why you're playing poker, and then somebody feeling empathy for you, and then maybe somehow soft playing you, and also in a way.
Yeah.
But then also others, you know, if you're hearing that on a very rational level, you think like, well, should I just replicate that for my own EV, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's something. And then the question is, well, what if you're doing it authentically? What if you're just doing it because that's also the way you feel, but you would previously not have done it? It's actually a very interesting topic for sure, that you could think so many things about, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to grasp the whole.
I mean, people could call me out for sure and just say, okay, like, you're doing this for your own EV, but I think the reality is, is I've got the phone numbers in my phone of these people, of these businessmen who have literally said to me, hey, because I've told them that I don't want to play poker for the rest of my life, when I do engage in conversation. And I'm not saying that every game that I sit down at, I'm telling people my life story. There are definitely days where I've just got my headphones in, my hoodie up, and I'm just that guy. I'm that annoying guy that no one wants to talk to because I'm not in the mood to talk. But I've got the phone numbers in my phone of these people, and I would like to think that I'm doing it for more than just the EV at the table, because I like learning from people, man. Like it's got me to where I am today by listening to what people have to say, not just about poker, but their approach to life. Like I don't have a clue about nutrition until about 6 months ago, where I was smoking, I was drinking, I was just eating anything, because I was like, I'm what you call, I'm the definition of a tough builder. I just can't put on weight because it's just because of my genes. And I was like, okay, well, if I can't put on weight, I can just eat chocolate, McDonald's, I can smoke cigarettes, I can just drink as much as I want, because hey, I'm not like, I can't see the weight that I'm putting on. But then I met this guy who at the poker table in a 2-2 PLO game, who I think trying to think how old Sandro is, about 45 years old. The guy is ripped to shreds. And
you mean Trovato, Sandro?
Yeah, Sandro Trovato. And then
Beast,
we got talking, exchanged numbers, and then I texted him on WhatsApp. I was like, hey man, any chance I can ask you, where to start? And he's like, burpees. I was like, okay, I can't do burpees, but he's like, just do burpees, and it's just little things like that, just learning from areas of expertise that other people have to then help improve your own life, and not just poker, because poker, obviously the main goal is to make as much money as possible. But if you can sit down at a poker table and also learn how to, ride a bike, learn how to swim, or go to the gym and, do the correct workouts, how to live a healthier lifestyle, then you're just crushing. Not just money wise, you're just crushing life in general. And there's a lot of people at the poker table that are crushing life, but they're not winning poker players.
Who know about these things,
for sure. I mean, there's definitely that reason behind it for me, because I just want to learn, because we're only on this planet for a limited amount of time, and we don't know how much time we've got. And I don't really care about money anymore. I used to be obsessed with it, and I think, like I said earlier on, I've now gone the polar opposite, where if my family's happy, my family are healthy, my closest friends are healthy and happy, and I can afford to go and see them. Obviously, that is to do with money, but as long as I can afford to go and see them when I want to, then I don't care about the money outside of that. I just don't.
There's also this, I would say, this thought out there, maybe at the poker table, that you're getting labeled very quickly when you're actually not talking. And I realize that also sometimes that when you're staying silent, people might also assume that you're, these stereotypes out there in poker for a long time, and I think they're getting worse. I think that that regular that just stay with the hoodie and headphones, etc., I think you're get labeled as such a regular very quickly by anyone, right? It could be other regulars, it could be recreational players, whether they are successful or not at business doesn't matter. And that just happens in an instant, whether you actually did something to confirm that or not. But as soon as you start talking, I think then you can basically, as you mentioned before, you can basically raise the level of empathy other people have for you if you say something. But if you don't, then how are people going to have insights in what you're thinking about? I actually realized that also the last few years, there's quite a few people that have never spoken to me about anything else than poker. And I just realized that in hindsight, that they might have thought that I was actually not interested in talking about other things than poker, because they didn't know me better. Like they just perceived me as this poker regular who just all Andreas thinks about is poker, which is totally not true. I think actually a little bit too much about anything. Like I'm very much in my head, like probably thinking too much in life in general, but a lot of it is non-poker related. And I realized that a lot of people that have been talking to me have actually not realized this, that they, well, at least the people I met in poker, that I have other interests in poker because they've just never tried. Like they've never like tried to hint a topic into a direction. There's certainly some things that I don't care much about. If you talk with me about soccer, like I can, and like I like sports, but if you talk about your favorite team, like I might talk with you about it just to show some interest in what your favorite team is, and if we're like at a match or something, like at the soccer match, I would join for sure and show some interest. But if it's just on a like watching TV and stuff, I don't care that much about these things. But when it comes to the topics that you mentioned, nutrition, business, exercise, these things are not just because I play poker, but I want to stay healthy. These are actually things that I care a lot about and am showing a lot of interest in, and I can also listen for a long time if somebody tells me about it. And people want to talk about what they're good at, right? So
for sure.
But this is just something I wanted to add, that a lot of people might underestimate that as well, about people that they might put like a label on a poker regular, thinking that that poker regular is just about poker, which is
they live in
not the case.
They live in the Solver streets nonstop. Yeah, for sure. I learned that about you recently after we did the commentary for the Galfond challenge. You know, like we were talking, and you were like, you showed me your schedule, like the meditating and the content creation and the studying that goes into poker, and then stuff that you do outside of poker as well. And I think maybe it's a bit of a stereotype, like you said, where because poker is your profession, or you know, poker is the profession of poker players in general, that people think that's all they want to talk about. But there are ways to segue it. Like I've got a very easy segue. I'm very fortunate. You know, most of the games that I play in are here at King's, and obviously people know me as a commentator. So it opens. It's a smooth icebreaker, because I can segue into commentary, and then they ask me a few questions, and I'm like, oh, like what do you do? And it gets the conversation going. But if you're like there, you know, with one earbud in and a hoodie up, it can be pretty tough to just like randomly turn to the person next to you and say, hey man, like what do you think about, I don't know, like triathlons or whatever? It could be a bit of a weird way to kind of start a conversation. So I don't know, maybe take like a Rubik's Cube to a table, and maybe someone will say, oh man, I used to be able to do that in 30 seconds kind of thing. It starts a conversation.
Absolutely. And there's certainly people are a lot more skilled at it than I am. I think I can start a conversation at the poker table somewhat well, but there's so many people I've seen that they're doing that incredibly well. And I like the stereotyping that I've just described before. That doesn't just happen to me. That also happens from me towards other people. Like I've certainly stereotyped some poker players and just being interested about poker and the basic labeling that way. And I certainly should question that attitude towards them every time that I play, and try to disconfirm what I think of somebody, because this is just like this is my mindset about everything, or at least my better mindset about everything is trying to disconfirm your current beliefs about somebody, about how the world works, because that's basically the way to get further in life, if you're disconfirming your current beliefs, or trying to. Because if you cannot do that, then you're basically you're solidifying your truths, right? Your truth is getting stronger and stronger by not finding disconfirming evidence, but at least you trying to is leading you more towards it. And that's at least one of the approaches that I think are very strong, or is very strong.
It's kind of like a I don't want to word this, kind of like a confirmation bias in a way, is that like you see a poker player and that's your opinion straight off the bat. You know, you just paint everyone with the same brush, and I think we've all been guilty of it. Like I was in Bali with like 8 other poker players in November, and we went to this beach club, and there were these guys, you know, who were just ripped. You know, you could tell that they hit the gym hard like every day. They basically lived in the gym, and a couple of the boys that I was with, you know, like nobody wants to see that kind of thing. All they care about is the gym. Like, well, look, you don't know, man. I know some poker players who are very healthy now. They're in great shape, and they used to be, you know, in real bad shape. And like I've heard some stories. I've seen some pictures of people that were literally at the age of 17, 18, you know, getting told by doctors, listen, if you keep this up, you're going to be dead by 30. And now they're in better shape than 99% of people. So I was like saying to my friends, I was like, listen, you know, just because he's got an 8-pack and, you know, like he's wearing like the pink shorts, you don't know that he's in the gym every day. You know, it might have taken him 10 years to get to where he is now. You know, so just removing that bias that you have in your head based off what you see is definitely gonna help you in life in general. It's certainly helped me with everything. And yeah, just you can't always read a book by its cover.
Yeah, I agree. I think that confirmation bias I mentioned is like that 90% of your thoughts were the one from yesterday. You're not really made for having new thoughts unless seeing new people. And it's also one of the reasons why I think that I have made a decision now to change my poker career quite a bit. And that's like, I'm going to go for traveling from May starting. I'm going to again go to Vegas to Barcelona, play a lot more live poker. And just because I realized that in my online poker career, a lot of like, this has its good sides, don't get me wrong. I think that true mastery, which is something, you know, you want to aim for in poker as well, comes from doing the same things over and over again each day. And then I just got distracted by a comment there. I hate it when people judge me based on my 8-pack.
Judge me what?
Yeah, Fernando in there. I hate it when people judge me based on my 8-pack. Just let me crack up for a second. And so when you're doing these things over and over again and putting like all your eggs into one basket, this is where the best online poker players, the breed of them, like starts, right? This is where the generation of the best players, this is how they started, like putting all their efforts into the same thing day in, day out, you know, having the same thought and like always new thoughts and basically going very deep on their work as online poker play. And yeah, this is certainly something you might be doing. But then I also realized that a lot of the things outside of poker don't develop as much, right? You're neglecting a lot of other things, and unless you have that you know, circle of people around you that naturally pushes you towards having new experiences. And I think whenever I was traveling, a lot more did happen in my life, where, you know, I learned just a lot more. Whereas if I just played online poker, I learned about online poker, yes, but at some point there's a diminishing return of it. But also, I think my learning outside of poker was a lot slower, I would say, when being an online poker player. I think there just has to be phases, and I can always say, okay, like I'm doing this for a year or two, and then I have a phase where I go very deep into online poker again for 6 months, and just because I have the natural curiosity again, which I think gets deadened a little bit if you are, at least for most people, I guess, if you're going, it's a little bit a dangerous topic because you can also, that's a concept I learned from Master by George Leonard. You could become a dabbler, you know, just basically doing one thing, stopping at some point because you're realizing you're hitting those resistances, and then doing something else. But I think I want to stay in, of course, in poker because I still love the game, but then also I want to have a lot of other experiences outside of poker, and online poker, I think, has been a little bit not rich enough of other experiences, especially the place where I live right now is, there's some live poker around here, but not, there's some things I like, for example, going to the gym and stuff. But then I think traveling has been a lot more interesting to me, or at least the travel periods in my life.
I mean, the thing about online poker, right, and this is actually one of the most interesting interactions that I had with an online player was Dan Few. Obviously, for those of you that don't know who Dan Few is, a bit of an Omaha beast.
Yeah,
But
been on the Poker Play podcast as well before. Guys, check it out if you want.
You know, first time I met him, he came up to me and Jane Anders, and he just basically said, "Oh, I was googling you both," and I was like, "You what?" He was like, "Yeah, I googled your name so that like I could find a little bit about you," because he didn't know me, but he knew that I was doing the commentary for one of the tables that he was going to be on, and he wanted to have a better understanding of me as a person. So to be able to use it as an icebreaker, you know, he Googled me to find out information about me so that he could then engage in a conversation with me. And I think that what happened there, like with him, goes to show how certain online players can get so deep in the lab. They can just go down the rabbit hole so far that they forget about other things outside of online poker. And I'm super excited for you to go traveling because I think you're going to have some of the best experiences of your life. Because for me, traveling the last like 2-3 years, you know, like I've been saying to friends recently, you know, I could get hit by a car tomorrow and I'd be pretty happy with what I've done. Like obviously I don't want to,
Sure.
but you know, like I'm really happy that I've traveled and I think you're gonna love it. And you know, the mistake that I made with traveling is when I first started traveling, I would go to a city and the first thing I'd do would be to find out where the casino is. And I did that for about 2 years, and it wasn't until I then went on a road trip with a friend of mine who didn't play poker. So obviously, like taking that person to a casino wasn't really an option. And we started like going to art galleries and museums and like seeing things like in the places that we were visiting that I truly discovered just how fulfilling traveling is. And just wanted to go back to something that you mentioned before as well about, you know, like managing and mastering things outside of poker. Someone that I personally think that I've got a lot to learn from is not only yourself, but Fernando as well, man. Like that guy, the way he manages his time. If I could manage my time half as good as he manages his time, I'm talking gym, content, poker, study, relationships, you know, like just all of that stuff. Sometimes I see these people and I'm just like, are you like Elon Musk, for example? How the fuck does that guy do that? How do you manage time like that well? And you know, all it takes is just pushing yourself a little bit harder. Because when I look at the amount of times that I'm not going to go to the gym today, you know, or you know, I'm not going to study Russian today for 30 minutes, or I'm not going to do my 15 minutes of yoga. It's just bullshit. It's just laziness. And you know, these people just seem to have it that it's just drilled into their head that like
It's
for
just
me, I've always struggled like where I don't see the result instantly, like studying Russian, for example. After a week, oh, I don't speak fluent Russian, you know. But these people have it in their head. They're like, okay, this is going to be a lengthy process. I'm overweight right now, or I don't speak a word of Russian, or I don't know how to play the guitar, or I don't know how to swim. It's going to take me about 1.5 years to achieve these things. So that 15 minutes each day, they just see it as a little stepping stone to the end goal. And I think that's been a bit of like my downfall with stuff like that, is where I don't see an instant result. I kind of just like, oh, well, you know, I'm not ripped yet. I'm just going to stop going to the gym, or I don't speak fluent Russian yet. So I'm just going to stop studying Russian. So these guys just are so focused on the end result because they know how rewarding the end result will be. And I think that's why they're crushing not just poker, but things outside of poker as well. And it's really impressive.
Do you believe it's about the end result and not about the process of getting there?
I think the end result is a massive motivator for sure. I think it's going to like help you through the hard times. I also think the learning process as well is obviously probably like the most important thing. It's just like learning a new discipline. Like I recently took up jiu-jitsu again for the first time in like 7 years, and like I used to love jiu-jitsu and I just stopped it because I just got lazy. Like I was like, oh, I don't have time. Like I need to play as many hands as possible a day, and I just neglected it. And I recently moved to Malta with 2 like OG German MTT regs, and they're crushing life. You know, they're not just crushing poker. They got healthy like friendships, relationships. They go to the gym, and you know, they've really been pushing me to just stop the bullshit and stop worrying about the end result, because, you know, if you're bringing your A game to everything, the experience is going to be amazing either way, man. Like, I've been going to the gym recently, and, you know, although I don't see the results instantly, like, I'm enjoying it. I'm just enjoying the process. I'm enjoying experiencing it and doing something new, and not like being results orientated all the time. And it's something that's taken me a very long time to learn. I've still got a lot of learning to do when it comes to that, because there are still things in my life that I'm results orientated about, but it's just part of the process of growing up, I guess, and learning, not just as a poker player, but in life in general.
Yeah, well, Fernando mentions here in the chat as well, he doesn't care about the end result, more about the game, the process, and the game of building, learning, connecting, and inventing is something also that I've found that, you know, there is this delusion of your reward. I think when we all think about delaying gratification and basically saying, okay, we're going to work on this for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it takes, and we're going to get this big reward. I think that delusion has been talked about quite a bit, and it's, you know, whether that is money or success, fame, whatever it is, also all these superficial things. And I think that it's been proven to not do anything for you. And just, I mean, I just know that already, that whatever money or all these other superficial things I'm going to achieve, they're not going to mean that much. So that is definitely not a motivator for me either. Like that end result, the big end result that I've made it, or I've made it even bigger or whatever. This is just not something that can motivate me. And it's something that might, you know, might delude you into going down that route, but at some point you realize that it has been a delusion. And I think that's something that there's this concept of elephant and rider, or horse and rider in your brain, whereas your emotions tend to go for those big rewards later, you know, that those you know, future goals and that end result. But that at some point you realize that it isn't that way, but that's when your energy basically drops. And I've experienced that quite a bit. I think some years ago, I might have actually believed in that end result. And as soon as I stopped doing that, like that has certainly lowered my energies quite a bit. But then rediscovering other sources of energy, you know, just trying to enjoy what you're doing and trying to reframe it has then slowly built up that energy again. And I'm basically trying to find a lot of ways to understand my career and you know, why I'm doing all the things that I'm doing in my life and where this is leading to. And I think I'm slowly getting there. It has been a reframing process for sure, because I think that end result was more important to me years ago. I've realized that that's a delusion, and that I didn't want that necessarily the end result, but just basically live up to my own standards. And maybe that's also something that you described with the people that you mentioned before, that they've just tried to go for their highest standard they can achieve. Just, you know,
just being the best version of yourself. But like you mentioned a delusion, and it definitely is a delusion. But I also think that we'd be delusional to pretend that the end result wasn't what attracted us in the first place.
Yeah.
Because, you know, why do people start going to the gym? Now, it is because like they want to better themselves, you know, they want to be in the best shape of their life, but it's because they got this image in their head of what they could potentially be. It's the same with poker, you know, like, why do I want to study? You know, what's driving you to study? It's not because you enjoy studying, because like I know there are some weird poker players out there, my roommate included, that actually enjoy using solvers, but it's because you know that by doing this and using a solver and studying, it's going to help you achieve more in poker, and the end result is going to get closer or whatever. So I think there's a like delusion that goes both ways. I think, you know, it'd be wrong to pretend that for me personally, like the reason I go to the gym isn't because I like my body aching. It's because, you know, I want to be healthy. The reason I eat vegetables isn't because they're tasty. It's just because, you know, I need to eat a certain amount of, you know, like good fibers and like healthy food a day. And, you know, the reason I quit smoking, like, this is something that's really interesting, actually. Like, I loved smoking, and I'm not stupid. You know, I know that smoking is bad for you. but I just enjoyed the social dynamic involved with smoke, going outside, someone else would be smoking, chatting with them. And for many, many years, you know, people, friends, close people to me, like, Henry, why don't you quit smoking? Like, and I'm like, listen, guys, like, I know that it's bad for you. You know, I'm not stupid, but I just enjoyed it. But it took me time to really want to be healthy and care about, you know, life in general to actually quit smoking. And it didn't take anyone telling me to do it or like stuff like that. It just, well, Fernando will tell you the story one day, but it was just a moment where I was just like, you know what, like, I just need to do it. Just need to do it. And yeah, they're life's weird when it comes to stuff like that.
Did you find a replacement for your habits of smoking and the social aspect of it? And I know what you're talking about. I've also seen a lot of people smoke, and they're just loving it. And you know, some of my friends, they were smoking, and I've never fully understood why they couldn't quit and just do all these other things that are connected with it regardless. But what did you find that you were replacing it with?
Salted peanuts. Every time I wanted a cigarette, I just had bags and bags of salted peanuts, because it's just like the Navic. I'm trying to think of the word in English. I don't know why I just said it in Bulgarian. But yeah, like, just replacing, you know, the use of hands, like the 5-minute break for MTTs online. I know what 90% of poker players do during that time is go for a cigarette. And these are poker players that smoke, obviously. And then to then quit smoking, the most difficult time that they have of quitting smoking is that 5-minute break when they're grinding MTTs, because they're so used to it. So every time I would go for a cigarette normally, I then just had to replace it with something. And for me, I was just so used to using my hands all the time that I was just like, okay, well, salted peanuts it is. Let's bulk a little bit, you know. let's get the best of both worlds.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at least you found something to replace it with, right? Otherwise, it's just like cold turkey to finish something. It just uses also a lot up of your willpower, and this is something. One of the most important concepts to me is how your willpower works in whatever you want to accomplish, and you know why willpower failure happens, and you know how you can connect it with habits. So I've done a lot of research when it comes to that, and there's certain things, like, for example, what do you want from life? What do you want to accomplish, right? This is basically a concept that Kelly McGonigal, a researcher, I think from Stanford University, she basically went into those different areas. The one power is what you want, and you know whether you can follow through and accomplish it. What you say you will do when you're like making promises and like, I will do this and this and that, and when you're falling back on your promise. And then the third thing is resisting temptation, what you won't be doing or what you say you won't be doing, but then still, you know, break and not do that anymore. So there's these 3 areas, and certain people, they might be really, really horrible at basically, for example, quitting smoking, like the won't power. Like you say, I won't smoke for an entire year. Yeah. And then at some point you're falling off the wagon, and they cannot handle that kind of willpower that is necessary for that, for basically breaking that habit. But then they might be really strong at what they want in life. So if they want something really, really badly, for example, I would say that Danfu is somebody that I would categorize in that willpower in a spectrum as somebody who's extremely strong at something he wants, right? Poker and becoming better, becoming the best version, and just becoming a huge beast. But then when it comes to the won't, what he doesn't, when you say like, I won't like eat this much trash food or like this many calories, that is like the part he struggles with. So it's like a different kind of activity, or just something different when it comes to willpower. It's like segmented a little bit, and I think that has helped me a lot to understand also my own basically challenges when it comes to doing, like, I'm probably not as polarized as, but I understood like I'm a lot weaker than some other people in pursuing something that I want, or like I have to foster a lot more when I want something, and basically strengthen that every single day to go at it and just do that. What I'm extremely strong at is basically resisting temptation. Like, I've never smoked in my life. I can easily not drink alcohol for a year. I could not drink alcohol for 10 years if it had to be. Like, my willpower when it comes to resisting taking something, my spending behavior, I just don't feel the need to consume alcohol, cigarettes, or like, and then just that part of my game, I think is really strong.
I think that's a really good trait to have on your side as well.
But on the other hand, the things that I want to accomplish, I might be okay at it. Like, at least I won some money at poker, and I've finished my school. I have a teacher's degree. Okay, like I cannot say that I have failed miserably, but I just noticed that a lot of people are doing better with their willpower when it comes to these goals. And segmenting. And then there's the third thing that what you say you will do, the promises, and meant to basically put it away from what you want to accomplish is also a little bit complex. And I've not like fully understood it yet, but I think like at least making the differences between them is really beneficial for you. And then the second part is like the added habits that you have, because habits basically are replacing willpower. If you're doing something on a daily basis and it's just a habit, then you don't have to use your prefrontal cortex and basically conjure up that willpower to do it anymore. And sometimes it takes 30 to 60 days to do that. But habits are so great for that reason. And I think that people are most successful with multiple areas in their life. They have just, as the book says, atomic habits, just going and, doing those things on a day-to-day basis.
Great book.
Yeah.
That was definitely my biggest downfall and it probably still is, to be honest. It's something that I'm still working on. I don't want to say that I've mastered it, but I've definitely got better at not telling people what I'm going to do, because for so long I would tell people I'm going to start the gym, I'm going to quit smoking. Every time I would try and quit smoking, I would tell everyone, and then a month later I'd have a cigarette in my hand and they'd be like, oh, I thought you quit smoking, and then they'd be disappointed in me, kind of, or I thought you started the gym. And I'm so fortunate to have the friends that I had to call me out on my bullshit, because it got to the point where I was just so obsessed with getting the recognition up front for what I was potentially going to achieve, rather than just focusing on it and then getting the recognition after I'd achieved it. So I was just I would for years just like, going to quit smoking, going to go to the gym, going to be the best poker player in the world, I'm going to do this, going to do this. And my friends got to the point where they're like, whatever, Henry, we'll believe it when we see it because we've heard this story before. And it took that for me to start thinking, oh shit, like people don't really believe me anymore when I say that I'm going to do these things, because I never follow through. Because the way that your brain works is, it thinks that by telling people that you're going to do something, they're like, well done, you worked towards that goal today. You told people about it, you got people hyped up, you could take the rest of the day off. And it's something that I learned from David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, about just fucking getting on with it. And people are going to see the result when you get there. You don't need recognition on the way up. In fact, you don't need recognition at all, but people are going to recognize hard work that you've put in to certain things that you've devoted time to once you've actually done it. But by going around and telling people that you're going to do something, all you're doing is setting yourself up to failure, because when you don't do it, people are like, well, hang on, I thought you were going to do this. Oh yeah, then you have to come up with some lame ass excuse, and then people call you out on it. And it's something I've started doing with my friends, because they helped me overcome that. So now when they tell me, oh yeah, I'm working on this project, I'm going to do this within the next 6 months, I'm like, hey man, do me a favor, come back to me in 6 months when you do it, and then we'll celebrate then. You'll get that recognition once you've done it.
That's a very good point that you're making there, Henry, because that early celebration, or that telling somebody, has the neurochemistry changes that you're actually getting from actually achieving it. So you're basically getting those dopamine hits, and whenever you tell somebody what you're going to do, And that's also something that I try to do less and less, and like whenever I can avoid it, and think about it actively, that I just try not to do that, because I know that just conjuring up those dreams about the futures and what I'm going to do is just like so bad for me, because I'm getting also that reward. I'm getting that too early, and I shouldn't. I should basically work for it and then get the reward
100%.
later. Yeah.
100%. Like I'm staking someone at the moment, and I love him to bits. He's been a very good friend of mine for a long time, and the first maybe 4 weeks of me staking him for online cash, every day it was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fire up a grind, in an hour or 2 hours, and I'm just like, well, firstly, like just do it, man, because like in 2 hours time, what if you've got a headache? What if you're not playing your A game and you feel off, and then you have to come back and tell me, oh, you know what, Henry, actually I'm not going to grind today. So after he stopped doing that, I swear to God, about a month after he stopped, he messaged me like randomly, because I hadn't spoken to him in about a week, and he's like, yeah, I'm up 50 buy-ins this weekend. I'm like, there you go, man. Like just go out and get it. Like, I'm proud of you either way. You're going to get the recognition when you achieve the results. Don't tell me what you're going to do. Don't tell me that, in 6 months' time, Henry, I'm going to be playing 200 NLH, no limit hold'em. I'm like, okay, right. Just focus on what you got right now, and we'll get there gradually. But stop telling me that you're going to do it. And he's finding success now, and I'm super proud of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's ridiculous also with all these chat options that we have. We have WhatsApp, we might have Discord, Skype, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We have so many options, and trying to limit them as much as possible now. And then that also will limit your ability to basically make those promises or those texts, what you're going to do. And it's just also the huge distraction that comes from it, like being available all the time, 24/7 for people to basically also come with their agendas and then what they want to do. Like, sure, you might work with some people, and it's really important to keep updated with them, like your inner circle, so to speak. But then there's also tons of people who don't know you, who might just basically try to further their agenda without like basically trying to come up with anything from their end. I don't know. A lot of people, they basically get into touch with you, and they don't think about, before they do that, what their side actually could bring, what value they could bring to you. Like whether that's money or advice or whatever that is, but that there's just, their goal of basically getting something from you, whether that's your attention, your advice, or whatever. And like, I'm not, when it comes to producing content, I'm not, obviously, I try to put out a lot of advice for free, and you can go and get it. But there's also some people that might try to sneak into DMs, and they could do it in a lot better way, like publicly. Especially like I don't receive like too many direct messages, but like some of them I really thought about, well, why didn't you put that below a video? Why didn't you just put that somewhere where other people could see and learn something from it, so that when I put that advice, instead of putting it in a direct message, I understand it if it's like personal or some struggles somebody had. That's totally different. Like if somebody wants to tell me something about the story or something, okay, and some advice on that, okay, fine. But it's also possible to do it in like on a public note and on a video and something, so that other people could also get something from. This is just something that I wanted to add here when it comes to that.
With stuff like that, like, I mean, my favorite one is obviously, can you teach me poker? And I'm like, Google, like the same way that everyone else got into it, teach yourself first. Like, you've got to want to be able to teach yourself first before you can learn from someone else. Because although someone else has mastered something and they do have a lot to teach, you've really got to want it. Like, I don't want to call anyone out. I don't want to fire any shots, but I've had people that have messaged me before and have literally just said, hey, can you get me in the commentary booth? I'd really love to give commentary a go. And I had a lot of help along the way. And I'm still going to need a lot of help going forward, because I'm nowhere near, the likes of Schulman, Ali Najjar. Like, these guys are at the top of the game. But just like reaching out, and I don't even know you, instead of just like maybe like meeting up with me, discussing hand strategies, or like, I don't know, like putting out YouTube content of some hands that you found interesting and breaking down hands, so that someone watches it like they did with my stuff and go, wow, this guy really knows how to dissect hands really quickly, simplified. The way that he's explaining it makes sense not only to pros but recreationals. Hey, let me drop him an email, see if he's available to come and maybe do some commentary kind of thing. Listen, I'm not saying I'm browsing YouTube for the up and coming commentator stars or whatever, but there's certain ways to go about it, and it's the same with anything. But people just want they want the magic code. They all think that there's some piece of information that they don't, and once you tell it to them, they're just going to have all the answers that they've been looking for in everything, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, these shortcuts, whether it's, as you say, in commentary or poker successes, what a lot of people see the wrong way. And also when it comes, for example, to learning poker, can you teach me poker? Like, sure, I can teach somebody poker. I can, especially if you're putting a lot of work, right? But then there's probably some people out there losing like 5 to 10K a year, or maybe even more than that. And then they're trying to get into coaching, and instead of like studying themselves, like, sure, some people, coaching can be a great thing, that it can help you a lot. But then also, you have to put out also a lot of money for coaching and basically be willing to make those investments. Otherwise, what is your contribution, right? Like what does come from you? You have to, but what also a lot of people don't understand is you're also investing in your own ability to go through then with it. Because if you're like, for example, teaching people for free is always something that I have not been advocating. Like also coaching for profit is very, very, very difficult. I think only like less than 5% will succeed with that, coaching for profit in general.
I agree.
Because some people, they might have the urgency to make that kind of money and do everything for it. But a lot of people, they will fail just because they haven't invested anything. They're basically free rolling, right? In coaching for profit. They're getting the coaching, and then if they don't succeed, who gives a fuck, right? Like they certainly, they might give a fuck a little bit, but nothing happens to them, right? There's nothing at risk. There's just this, it can also obviously go the other way around, where, a winning player gets like coaching for profit and the coach doesn't really provide additional value. And then, the winning player basically gives some of the profits away, which makes no sense at all either. So there's like this two-way route, but I think it's more the case for people who are not willing to work hard, and then they're looking for coaching for profits. And then it's no surprise that these coaching for profit companies out there, who are having these very weird contracts, are actually the ones that stay, right? Because they have these extremely narrow contracts, or people commit to them for a very long time. These contracts might not even be legal, whatever, but people are still going to be trapped into making that $500 or $1,000 deposit, getting like second tier coaching for that. And it's really something that gets pissed me off. And when it comes to trying to also appeal to that, that short-sightedness. That's what it is, right? This coaching for profits, they appeal to short-sightedness of people who want the quick pill. And then, these guys, they fall for it, and they pay like some amount of money for second tier stuff that is not even, teaching you how to beat poker in 2020 anymore. And then, they're just wasting their money, their time, their efforts, and the people who reside are the ones that are getting like these quick deposits and for like some videos. I mean, who cares about that? Like, I've seen certainly a lot of people falling for that crap out there.
I personally don't know enough about coaching for profits to make a comment on the process itself and the contracts, because I'm just not familiar with it. But like you said, like with the quick pill, I think a lot of people are guilty of that in poker. Like, you see so many people who are very disciplined in other things in life, but they just can't commit to the study. They just can't commit to the grind. And something that I've been guilty of for so long, where it would just be like, wake up, straight to the laptop, play. Oh, same result as yesterday. Go to sleep, wake up, do the same shit, different day. And then like be sat there a year later like, oh, how comes I'm not beating this game, you know, like more than I was a year ago? Like, how comes I seem to keep making the same mistakes? So, well, actually, Henry, you know, maybe if you didn't play 12 hours a day and you actually took 2 hours of those 12 hours out of the day to review hands, you know, talk to the people that you know, get an outside opinion, get some constructive criticism into your game, maybe you'll improve. And the reason I wasn't doing that, and I think it's the reason a lot of people don't do it, is down to their own egos. I was just so big-headed when it came to it. Like, I know best. I don't care what anyone else has to say about poker. I don't want people to give me advice. And I would just shut down, you know, sharing hand histories with friends and getting an outside opinion. And you see that all the time. And I've had it before where people have come to me and they've shared a hand with me and asked for my feedback, and then they've completely shut me down. And, you know, it's just gone in one ear and straight out the other. And I'm just like, look, if that's the type of person you are, best of luck to you. But I don't want anything to do with you if, like, you're going to come to me for constructive criticism, but then you can't take it on the chin. You know, if I'm going to call you out and say, listen, in my opinion, you played this street bad. And I'm not saying that my opinion is gospel, but you can't, you know, ask for advice and then not even listen to it, man, because how on earth are you going to learn? And it's something that that I did for so long. I would just go to the casino, play this 1-2 game whilst I'm trying to build a roll. I thought I was the best player in, you know, town, and I wasn't interested in hearing anyone else's opinion. And now I'm super fortunate to have, like, moved in to an apartment with 2 guys that are 10 years older than me. And, you know, they are very quick to call me out on my bullshit. Like, I was playing a hand, and my roommate's a tournament player, but he knows a little bit about PLO. And he was like leaning over my shoulder, and he saw me 3-bet squeezing out of the small blind. And he's gone, Henry, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, that's not a 3-bet. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, are you tilted? He's like, how many hands have you played today? And I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit tilted. He's like, right, get off your laptop right now, close it down, let's go for a walk, you know, let's go grab some food. And, you know, 5 years ago, I would have just told him to fuck off. I would have been like, mate, leave me alone. It is a squeeze. Like, it's a 10% frequency squeeze out the small blind. Like, you don't know anything. But he was right. You know, he was right. And I was just like, yeah, I'm a bit tilted. You know, I'm running 8 buy-ins below EV or whatever. Yeah, I'm frustrated. That's why I'm trying to, like, build pots. And just by listening to people and really understanding that poker, you know, you can look at a hand and you can get a million different opinions. Like my bust out hand on the WPT, you know, I've been speaking to a lot of people about it. Some people don't mind the defend pre-flop. Other people think that the pre-flop defend is an absolute torch. And I'm happy to hear both sides, because at the end of the day, it potentially cost me 50,000 euros. So I'm interested in learning what other MTT regs who saw the hand have to say about it, because it's something that I'm not that familiar with. And go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this is also something, sorry to jump in and interrupt you here. Something also discovered about myself. And by the way, to just answer something in the chat, Jongo, could you please stop talking about bad players? You know, we're just talking about short-sightedness here. And of course, players who have not won before, they will have more short-sightedness in poker, and like these abilities. You know, it's not like that. Henry and I are not guilty of like doing these things. Like Henry even shared a story of himself, like, you know, becoming better at that, like asking people for advice, etc. And, you know, these are also things that we have done wrong as well. It's not that it's just like, I don't know why you feel so targeted by us talking about bad players. It's just that, yeah, we're basically having these same issues. And for example, to give you a similar story, when I played 2K, and I don't play MTTs that often, right? And I certainly have become a lot more self-aware when it comes to my abilities in poker formats that I don't play that often. So I would bust out of a 2K tournament and then like ask a couple of different people. And then my play was sort of okay. And I think it's still, you know, a decent play with the players involved. And I know that had players been different, it would have been pretty, I mean, I had the sense that it could have been pretty horrible. So I was talking like to Christopher Frank about it, because he was just there at the casino, and I knew that he obviously knew better about the situation and what his thought process was. And he just, you know, gave me a couple of pointers and said, you know, this is this is what he thinks about the EV of my play and like the bubble factor and etc. And so it's very, very, it was a super sound thought process. And I thought it added a lot of value to my own thought process. I didn't think about some things in the way that he did. And, that was super valuable input for me to just basically consider my options for next times, or if I had a different hand in that spot, how would I have played differently? Also the tournament situation itself, should I have taken the spot, should I have just taken a different spot? And certainly always interested to hear other people's opinions, especially the ones who are better than you. And at some point, the thing is, it becomes a lot harder in poker. Obviously, stronger players, especially the better you become, the higher you play, they have incentives not to basically share any information, if even wrong information. And I think that's something, especially when you're looking at the online scene, at some point just becomes a current reality. Like finding better players to talk with, and the contact. Like sometimes you get into that by getting a coach, and this is certainly my way of how I got to deal with better players. Like 2 or 3 people that have started to talk strategy with were like my coaches. Otherwise, I would have never got to know them. But other than that, I think it's very, very difficult. Maybe as a content creator, sometimes you might get into, or when you go on the live poker scene, I think it's completely different. But these days, I think contacting online players to basically exchange some knowledge about poker, especially when the other is better or has better results, is almost impossible. Like it is possible, but I think it's super difficult. Like I couldn't go up to like somebody who plays PLO and is not even a lot more successful, but like somewhat more successful. And even though I think that I have a theoretical understanding of the game that could even give value to that person, it actually becomes somewhat difficult to convince that person, right? I think that's at least how I view it and my experience so far. Maybe I haven't tried it enough, but so that the other person, even though you get maybe also other value, right? Like talking to a player, maybe I have some skills that player doesn't have in other areas of their lives, and I could get some insights on that. So that's also my approach a little bit. I try to find, okay, what is the value that I can provide to the other person from my knowledge that's maybe outside of poker, if I'm talking to a better poker player. So I'm taking like that approach. I'm not going to try and think that, okay, I can provide so much value with my poker knowledge, but maybe with other things. And then vice versa. Like if you're maybe break-even poker player, if you approach somebody, I think the right approach is always like, okay, what can I provide in value? Maybe not in poker, but in other areas. And, have like a win-win situation that emerges.
For sure. And like, I just wanted to like go back to the comment as well. Like I think I'm a duster. I'm still making a lot of mistakes. I think I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in at the moment, but a lot of that is like also down to the fact that I have commentary to fall back on, which is just insane value. Like just how it helps reduce variance to start off with, where I can drop 10 buy-ins and be like, oh well, okay, I dropped 10 buy-ins, but I've got to send an invoice for this event that I covered, this event that I covered. So I'm going to get a bit like almost like 100% of it back kind of thing. So firstly, I'm super fortunate to have that. But secondly, I just wanted to like touch on that. The things that we've been talking about, for me personally, have been mistakes that I'm still learning from, and have been mistakes that I've made in the past for years and years and years. And it's the reason that I was a losing player for so long, where like with the bankroll management, as soon as I won a tournament, as soon as I had 3K to my name, I was playing 600 NL. I was playing 400 PLO. Like, who the fuck does that? It's stupid. Like, it's just like not how you succeed in poker. And, I wish I had someone there, like the people that I have now, telling me, hey man, like this isn't right. But my ego at the time, and I think a lot of it is ego with players that aren't winning, is because they're just too proud to reach out to people and just say, hey, like, white flag, I need a little bit of help over here, with this. And look, man, you can't help everyone at the end of the day. It's something that I've learned with poker for sure. Like, some people just don't want to listen. Some people just don't want to learn. Best of luck to those people, you know. But I'm here to learn, man, because it's the only way that I'm gonna get to where I want to be in life. And you know, by listening to people who don't even need to necessarily be better than me. You know, like people that are on my level, or even like maybe playing stakes lower than me, just hearing an outside opinion and a different thought process is just so valuable, in my opinion, because even if that person is worse than you can then think, oh, okay, well, this is how a player at his level is breaking down a hand. So therefore, when I play against a player like him in the future, I now know how he's thinking about this hand in this certain spot. And like I said, with the WPT opener bust out hand, I personally thought that, you know, I was 4 for 4. I had 10 big blinds. I had 2 big blinds invested at the start of the hand, so I'm playing 8 bigs effective. I felt like I should be defending any suited 10 from the big blind versus a min open from the cutoff. So if 4-handed, UTG cutoff opens to the min, I defend 10 deuce suited with 5, 6, 7, 8 big blinds behind, just less than 8 big blinds behind.
What were the other stacks?
So so I had at the start of the hand, I had 4.1 million, but I had to put in, obviously 400,000 was the big blind, 400,000 with the ante. So I had 3.3 behind. Chip leader had 17 million, second in chips had 13 million, and third in chips had 6.5 million. So no ICM pressure. So yeah, I defend. Obviously not no ICM pressure, but like I defend, and you know I flop a pair. It came 9-4 deuce, 2 diamonds. But then I later on, you know, realized that as played, the best way to have played the hand would have been to check raise all in, because I just get so much value from his ace X, his king X, his queen X that he c bets with. You know, if I can gain,
you just check call the flop then.
No, I just so SPR was like 1.1 going to the flop. I flopped a pair and I just ripped it in. I went for the good old fashioned stop and go. Yeah, me neither. Now in hindsight, you know, like obviously hindsight is a beautiful thing. But I by going all in, I lose value from all of his like just like jack high, queen high, king high type hands.
Yeah, I think also to add something to that is just that I think that people are in general over c-betting by quite a margin when it comes to, of course, whenever you have button cutoff versus big blind, the c-betting frequency is extremely high. It's going to be in the 70 to 90% region on a lot of boards, right? Especially, the wider the big blinds range gets. But people are probably even more button clicking than that, and sometimes upping their c-bet frequencies to 90 to 100% on all kinds of boards, and just, you know, clicking the third c-bet, and by just having a pair, you're just getting, as you say, so much value from the people, from the hands that are bet folding and just check jamming those hands. So no, I thought that you were just talking about the pre-flop defend, not the post-flop play, because if there's not much ICM pressure and you're the shortest stack, I think the spot to try and flop a pair out of the big blind with great odds and then check jam all in is just one of the best spots that you're going to get. I think sometimes better than the first in jam that you get from the small blind of the button. Anyway,
that's how I approach it. But you know, like I was really happy to get the feedback. Next time I know, next time I know that I'm gonna check jam it and get value from those hands. And I think by having that open mind, and instead of just be like, oh well, hang on, like where did you finish in the tournament? Like you didn't even cash, kind of thing. Like listening to people that were on my rail, it's going to help me massively to improve my game in the future. And hopefully on a future final table, if I do play MTTs, I'm still not sure where I want to go with MTTs, but hopefully I find myself in a spot like that. And even if in the future I find myself in a spot like that and the result ends in me busting the hand because he just turns out to have an overpair on that board, then so be it. At least I played the hand correctly and I learned something from a past mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. when we're talking about the Galfond challenge that you've also been commentating with me one day and with Marley the other day, I think you had like 2 streams. How was commentating in that heads-up challenge? How was it different to other commentaries? Because the level of play was so high, and you're basically just looking these world-class players, and then basically, you're outmatched by those players by a lot, and then you have to comment on it. How was that experience compared to commenting on a level of play that might be lower on your level or slightly higher?
Like, I remember going into it with that exact mindset that, like, because everyone knows me as a Pot Limit Omaha player, I felt like I had more pressure on me to analyze hands in like much higher depth that was possible, because firstly, Venny and Phil are like, I don't even want to try and estimate how much better than me they are as PLO players. So firstly, there was that. Secondly, there were no hole cards. I didn't feel the pressure of, commentating on such a widely watched and like highly anticipated event, because I've done 100Ks before, with some of the best MTT players in the world. I've covered the World Series of Poker Europe. So I didn't feel like, oh, I'm not good enough to commentate as a commentator, because you don't necessarily, have to be a world-class poker player to do commentary. It really depends on multiple factors, which we can either get into another time or discuss later on. But I was definitely nervous because it was PLO, and everyone knows me as not only a commentator but a PLO cash game player or expert or whatever you want to call it. At least that's what I feel like the perception of other people is. So it was really nice to like have you alongside me to kind of lean on and just know that, okay, I don't have much experience in breaking down PLO hands theoretically, because I just do it, if that makes sense. I don't necessarily I've never had to actually discuss it out loud. Whereas with this, because not many people understand PLO as well as they understand No Limit Hold'em Cash or MTTs, there are a lot more people in the chat that were expecting us to break down hands in more detail. And I've never had that problem before, because normally with my streams, people just don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. So it was nice knowing that you were there. I could just say like, hey dude, like, what do you think about this river card or whatever? What do you think about this sizing that Galfond chose? Or what do you think about the check jam that Venny just showed? And it was nice to, to know that I had you there to kind of lean on, because I was definitely more nervous going into that than I was covering like the entire World Series of Poker Europe, for example.
Well, the truth is, like, on my mind, it's probably even been more because PLO has been. I mean, I haven't been super nervous. I don't know, but when I'm making poker content, if I think in the grand scheme of things, it's just not. I don't know. The nervosity is not there as much. Like sometimes I've been nervous. I think like when I had Phil Galfond on the podcast the first time, I was a little bit nervous because, speaking to such a top high level player.
Yeah.
But then on most other occasions, I think that hasn't really shown as much. But when I was commenting, I was a little bit nervous, but not too much. And then I thought about, okay, what is my contribution going to be in the stream? Yeah, it's going to be about PLO, and it's going to be about, what I know about the game, trying to simplify it for the viewers, and well knowing that I would know a lot more than most viewers, but there's always going to be a few not just chat pros, but really strong players in the chat who are just obviously better than me. And then you have it's just, that's just as it is. And especially during those days as I've been commentating with you and Stapes, sometimes I was just not having a clue about the spot in itself, and then I can just say it. I can maybe make a distinction, say, look, in 6 max, the spot gets like played like this and that, and talking about different factors in PLO. And as a matter of fact, like I've actually now been a little bit in the lab about the heads up challenge. Like I have not done a lot of work for heads up, but I've started getting into the lab a little bit, and I've looked at some of the hands that went down, and I don't want to again say like what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do that. But let's see what happens. I'm just going to do what I can do, and then see how that.
See, that's what I've also said to my friends, is you're allowed to, like, people think that when they've said that, oh, I'm not allowed to say anything. Of course you can, man. But just go back to that about like what you bring as a commentator, and like with chat pros, and also knowing, because of how highly anticipated this Galfond challenge is, and the matches he's got lined up against someone like Venny, against Action Freak, who are known to be some of the best online PLO players in the world. You've got a lot of good players tuning in. So therefore, it's all about the way that you deliver your hand breakdown. And I think a lot of times where I've failed in the past, and I've been called out on it, and I've seen other commentators fail pretty hard as well, is where they make a statement with authority. This is the way the hand was played for this reason. I'm saying it, therefore I'm right. And then someone in the chat, and because it is Twitch chat, people in Twitch chat or on YouTube comments get a lot of shit because people are like, oh, he's just a keyboard warrior. You don't know that, man. I know some solid regs that watch Twitch streams and provide feedback, and break down hands. And, you've just got to be very careful with delivery, because like I said, I've had it before where I would try and break down a hand, and then some MTT crusher who's playing like all the 1Ks online, playing 10Ks live, 25Ks live, like, Henry, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Mikita Badziakowski didn't just do that for that reason, kind of thing. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm a bit out of my depth here, because, I'm just calling the action. And, I don't really know why Mikita's doing this, because he's just a GTO bot kind of thing. He's one of the best in the world. And I think you just got to be very honest as a commentator as well, is to sometimes say, you know what, guys, I don't know. So maybe if you could give me your opinions back home on how you would have played the hand, or what you think could have been done differently, it will help me learn for future spots as well as the commentator.
Yeah, it's it's all relative, right? I mean, a lot of the times when you see chat comments, it depends on what language people are using, right? Like you can definitely tell the ones that are more aggressive, that are not. You really can tell that they are probably not going to be some people that can tell you something. But I've certainly also on YouTube had people making some really great input, and I could tell that they were actually knowing what they were talking about by their language that they've used. I think language is the key here. If somebody who's better in that spot than me and will tell me about it on YouTube and on Twitch and whatever, I will recognize it. Also, you can develop the skill a little bit, but I will recognize it more and more just because of the language that they've used.
Yeah, it's all in the delivery, man. And people seem to forget that, and this is something Stapes is one of the best in the world when it comes to handling chat pros. It really is in the, like I said, I've made statements before where maybe the way I delivered it came across a bit egocentric. Maybe it came across a bit like, I'm the one in the booth. I've been called into the booth because I know best, kind of thing. And I've had someone in the chat say, actually, Henry, I just ran this, through a solver or, whatever. And this actually comes up. I'd be like, wow, man, I really appreciate that. But then you get the people as well who are like the polar opposite of that, and like, oh, what the fuck's this commentator guy talking about? Like, he doesn't like, and like Stapes likes to say, like, just pigeons.
Just on the other hand, though, solver authority is also kind of, I feel ambiguous about solver authority in general as well. Like,
that's an interesting subject. Yeah.
Because like a lot of people, like including me, of course, we can all run sims. We can do it one way or the other. We can, first of all, we can make a mistake running a sim, having the wrong assumptions. And when we do that, and then tell people all about it, what we have found from the simulation, and that what the other player has done is crap and whatever, that's just not going to make the cut, right? That doesn't bring any value. Like so we want to, of course, avoid the mistakes making the sim, and also having the right assumptions, and making more a general approach to, okay, if the assumptions were A, B, and C, then this is how the spot gets played in equilibrium. And if you're saying it like that, then it makes a lot of sense. But there's a lot of solver authority that's being used and say, look, for example, also pre-flop in pot limit OMA. Like people want to tell you that combination X is a 4-bet or not a 4-bet, or this is always a 3-bet. Yeah, the EV differences might be, I don't know, 1% or 2%.
Yeah.
But then if your opponent is just going to make a small adjustment or is going to be a specific opponent, then 3-betting or flat calling, also depending on what the people are behind you are doing, how much they call 4-betting, how much they're over-calling, and how much multi-way equity realization you have with your hand, then 3-betting or calling can be exactly the opposite of what's advocated by the solver, right? Of course, sometimes, everyone's button clicking, sometimes I'm button clicking, and then, I'm going to choose hands that are no 3-bets, and that will be play much better as a flat call. That's another story. But then solver authority just gives these people not just pre-flop, but also on the flop, what you're c-betting with, what you're not c-betting with. It gives those people some, authority that is kind of artificial. Like they have never been in a spot, or they're might be not even playing the same games or whatever. They are not actually executing on a high level, but they have the solver authority. They know how the spot plays out in theory. And the reason why I feel ambiguous about it, I understand all the people are saying that is bullshit, like these theory wizards or whatever. On the same note, I have to say, though, that sometimes even people who are not able to execute poker on a high level, they might actually have to teach you something. Like, it's very ambiguous. And on one hand, you don't want to always have these guys like telling you, but on the other hand, like there's a lot of players out there who benefit from these theory-oriented players that might be playing on PLO 50. Like I can tell you that there's probably dozens of 10, 20, 25, 50 players out there who might be, just live regulars, and they might make a ton of money. And if they actually talked and found a study partner, they could like partner up. Maybe I shouldn't say this, like I'm making my opponents better. What the fuck? But they could partner up with some random PLO 50 guy online that has actually studied a lot, but has somehow failed to execute it or struggle with the rake structures online, and learn a lot from that guy, and vice versa. Because the live poker guy has actually a lot of skills that might have put him into good games. He might have a lot of live poker dependent skills, and those two guys, they have edges on each other on some different levels, and both of them might think that the other guy sucks, right? Like that's a really interesting dynamic. If you let a live somewhat high stakes, I'm not even saying 10, 20 and 25, 50, it is considered high stakes, but a lot of these players, it's just they grew up into this, and the online guy who plays really small stakes might say, oh, this guy sucks. He doesn't even know this and that, but he doesn't recognize the skill set that's the live poker record, and vice versa. The live poker record is like, well, this online guy, he plays for pigeon stakes. What is this guy doing? I'm playing for this big money, and this guy doesn't know anything about the game, right? So this perception of these two players against each other is hilarious. And I have to say, I've been guilty of maybe shitting on some live poker players, not the recreationals and businessmen, but other recs. And I've tried to really, really put that down a lot more. And I stopped doing that. Like, or at least maybe think it, because I can't sometimes help to think that someone's button clicking, and sometimes I will say something, or make a sarcastic comment. Or sometimes I can't just help myself, right? But then you also have to be able to, when you dish out, you have to be able to take it. And when somebody makes comments about your game, it's coming right back at you. But I've tried to do it less and less, and also see what other players are doing well that might not have an online background. So I've seen a lot of live poker players that have other skills that I thought they were quite good, but that they probably lack a lot of fundamentals. And then I'm actually quite happy that they do, because
I mean, I'm the prime example for that. Like if I show people my win rates from live like 5-5 and 10-10 games, they're very impressed, but then I can't beat 200 PLO online. I probably can't even beat 100 PLO online, if I'm being completely honest.
Oh, and PLO or Hold'em? Like Hold'em is really, really tough, I think.
PLO. I only play PLO online. And it's the reason that I have recently been grinding online is because I do want to go over my fundamentals, and to revisit pre-flop spots, because obviously there's only a certain amount of hands that I can play per hour in live poker. So the reason, like, the last month and a half I've just been going so hard with online poker is because I just really just want to, like, just be really confident in my pre-flop ranges, my post-flop plays, just spots that I don't get to maybe experience that often in live, but when I do come across them, I want to be comfortable with them. And to be honest with you, it's been maybe the most depressed I've been playing poker the last 4 weeks in Malta. Although I've been very excited to, have my roommates, grinding online has just been so frustrating for me because it feels like every second hand I'm playing 50 PLO at the moment, man. Like every second hand I'm getting 3-bet, and I'm just like, this, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to playing like in these games, where people do have really solid fundamentals, but this is like a training camp for me at the moment, what I want to put myself through, because you hear it so often. Like you hear a really solid reg say, "Oh, yeah, I would put a 200 PLO reg that's winning at, I don't know, like 7 BBs per 100. I would put him in that 50-50 game." Of course you would. Like, of course you would, based off his win rate, because you just know that to win at that rate at 200 PLO, the guy has to have a solid game plan pretty much. But like you said, then you flip it to the other side, he might not know how to make and extract max value out of the players that are playing live poker, because he's not used to the ranges that they're playing at 50-50. He might be money scared when someone shoves on him on the river for 10,000 euros and he's got the second nuts. So it's easy to say, oh yeah, I would put a 200 PLO reg into a 50-50 game. I play 10-10 and 25-25, and my win rates at 10-10 are pretty impressive. I can't beat 50 PLO online at the moment. And I'm okay. I'm okay admitting that, because like I've just been struggling for the last few months. Like just been traveling, haven't been studying, and I've only recently just like been like putting effort back into studying and that. And I'm okay with that. It's a learning process. It's what I wanted to do, because I know that if I do lose, it's not going to like break the bankroll. And obviously after my recent score, I'm pretty okay with my bankroll at the moment. But it's so weird, man. It's a really interesting thing.
I mean, at the same time, comparing like online and live PLO, I would say that, like online PLO actually has often higher rake. Like in Europe, we have a lot of high rake games, and that's really, really annoying. So you need to game select a lot. You need to have business people in your games at 10-10, 25-25. Otherwise, it's just pointless. Like, if you're having online win rates in a live poker game, 10-10, 25-25, these are really not, I would say, pigeon stakes anymore. You're playing for quite.
No, they're not.
You can easily lose 10K, win 10K, lose 20K. I mean, that can all happen, and for that reason, you really want to have a massive edge. Otherwise, if like you're not even winning 2 big blinds per hour, if you're talking online rates in those games, and like who wants to play poker in a live environment, making, I don't know, I wouldn't want to make less than 50 an hour. It's actually, there's like some I'm already getting slightly aggressive if I realize like I'm not going to make 50 an hour in this game. Like I'm just leaving. If I think that the game in the next 5 hours is not, like, if I'm not at least making 50 an hour, I'm just out of there. Like I'm just not. And that happens so much, and I might have been a little bit more in the ridiculous end when it comes to that. Sometimes I might overestimate the rake, but I've been really, really rake aware in the games, and I think most of it has been good, but some of it has been maybe also bad, that I've been exaggerating a little bit and maybe underestimating the edge that I've still had. But yeah, you can see that this is like perspective, right? Like if you're playing poker for money, which apparently a lot of what I'm doing in live poker, I want to build a bankroll because like it's not for the money. Like I don't physically need that money, right? I'm like, my mindset is, well, if I don't get that, like I can never play in the games that I want to play. Like the money is just an entry fee that I need in order to compete at a higher level. So that's what I need the money for. I don't need the money for it to live. Like I'm totally okay. Like my expenses are generally super low. I don't need much in life in general. I have simple food. I don't have to go to fancy places, restaurants or whatever. It doesn't mean much to me at all. But
you wait till you start traveling, man.
Actually, I don't think it's gonna grow on me. It's like I like actually something that I have a bit of weakness for is like a nice spa place and just chill and just this is something I enjoy a lot, and I'm willing to spend most of or some money on and just my health in general. But when it comes to like food, when I go to restaurants at like $100, $200, $300 or something for just my own food, I might do that once in a while, and then maybe I don't know, celebrating something.
We all dabble occasionally, but I know what you mean. Yeah, for sure.
But in general, I'm just looking for like simple things that are just good for my health, simple food, and I don't need much. But the money is important to me because I need that money to play one of the big games. Like one of the most annoying things as a poker player is like a lack of bankroll. Like if you're looking at the main event, you don't always want to get staked for that kind of stuff, right? You just want to look, okay, the main event is soft. I'm certainly winning player in there by quite some margin. I just want to pay the enter here. I just want to pay the $10,000, buy in there, and just do my best and not think about it much. And it's like the kind of freedom that I want to accomplish with poker, right? That if I want to play poker, whatever I'm going to do in the future in my life, if in 2030, I'm not playing poker anymore, but I want to play the main event, I want to play the main event and not think about it.
Flick it
so, and that's just not that's that's a little bit the freedom that I'm fighting for when it comes to poker, and whereas my interest is when it comes to money. So at the same note, I have to say that it doesn't really matter how I made the money, right? I can also make it from other venues that I'm currently building in the future. But who knows? In the end, I just don't want to think about it much when it comes to a poker tournament and entry fee. I just want to play because I still love the game. And I think that's going to be true for the next 30 years and how I know myself, that I'm just going to play poker at least some of the time. I just love the game too much. And let's see if I'm always going to have the money to come up with. I've
tried taking breaks before, and it doesn't work. And I don't, like, as much as I say, like in 10 years time, I want to be doing other things, I'm going to have to be really passionate about the other thing. And it wouldn't surprise me if I continue with commentary, whether it's in poker or I try and get into something else, because taking I just took 4 months off, and then I just want to reiterate something I mentioned earlier on, but I just took 4 months off, and that was because, like I said, I did I think 95 streams for Kings alone last year. That's without Unibets, without party poker. I did over 800 hours, and I just I lost the passion for it. And it sounds pretty privileged, I know, because I'm so fortunate to be able to do this. And I know there are a lot of people that would jump at the opportunity to do it as well. But at the same time, as with anything, if you get too much of something, it can become too much. And I just needed a break. And then I just refound the passion for it. Now I am absolutely buzzing for this weekend. I'm covering the WPT main event with James Dempsey. Which is obviously one of the most prestigious main events in the world, not just Europe. And it's the same with poker. Whenever I take time off from poker, after about 2 weeks, every time I go to America, obviously because I can't play online, and I normally go to visit friends and family when I'm there. I don't really play much live. When I get back, I'm just raring to go, man. I'm just ready to fire up the tables. So I think finding that passion for the game and with commentary is something that's going to keep me going for a long time. And if I do decide to do something else, I better be passionate about it, because I know what I'm like as a person. And if my heart's not in it, then I just get really lazy with it and I just leave it on the side. And obviously taking the 4 months off from traveling and coming from a live background and then jumping into online, I think I underestimated people. This is what I wanted to reiterate. I definitely underestimated the population of online players playing 200 and 400. And I think I got off to a really good start, with 400 jumping straight into 400 PL. I probably ran super hot. I was up like 20 buy-ins or so within like the first 3 or 4 days. And then it just all went downhill. Like, I'm assuming it's because the regs kind of eventually figured me out, or I went on a bit of a bad run and then I had to like drop down to 200. Again, went on a little bit of an upswing and then again had to drop down again. And it's nice to have been knocked down a few pegs, and just been shown, okay, for certain reasons, whether that's, because of the way that I carry myself at the table or my reading capabilities. I don't really want to go into that. But online, your pre-flop fundamentals and your pre-flop ranges are just getting crushed by these regs because you're just playing way too loose. Your ranges are way too wide. And it's something I've learned from. And I'm super excited to keep learning, man, because it's just amazing.
Yeah, basically also, the opposite direction and just going into the online route, and I'm going more into live poker. But yeah, and this might be as a season thing, and let's see where it takes me in the future. I also want to know how it is like to not play online poker for a while, and how excited I am to come back at some point and play in the online streets. And I just think that the future is a lot brighter for live poker as well. I just see how the people are behaving in live poker, and they're just excited for the tournaments. PLO is becoming popular in some form or the other as in tournaments form. The people overestimating themselves in online poker is still a thing, but it's not as much of a thing anymore because people just got buried, and they just like 10 years ago people were playing heads up for rolls. Today, which players are gonna just voluntarily? Yeah, I mean, and also in live poker, that's just another thing. Now people just look at you, like, yeah, how can I not beat this guy, right? Like, look at them, just judging a book by its cover, and like people just, you want to go where people overestimate themselves compared to your abilities. And of course, in online poker, if you're the best of the best or one of the best, that's obviously amazing because you don't have to worry about who you're playing, because if it's like a regular and the regular things that he can keep up with you, then someone's going to play you. But that's like the harder challenge, I would say, to also build your bankroll. And I realized again and again, I'm just not like, don't get me wrong, I'm like, and people have heard me like where that I'm roll probably for 25-50. This is not something I would say is poorly rolled, but I just wish I was better rolled. Let's put it that way. Like, of course, like I realize, and that is something that has bothered me, that I don't have the money to play some of the games that I've seen. Some of the
live
100,
games,
100, 200 games that I've seen. Like, fuck, man, why can I not? I know it's just bad discipline if I just sit down there now and torch like 10, 20, 30K in like 2-3 hands. I'm just gonna be super mad. And I'm not going to play my best game when I sit down there with my current amount of money. So I didn't. And I said, well, but I'm going to have to find ways to make enough money playing poker so that I'm can sit down there and just play whatever I want. And that's just something that I want to do as quickly as possible, and while maintaining good health, which is always a little bit again. And because you have to see that. Tough. Yeah, and but yeah, going back just quickly to the heads up challenges. By the way, how I'm just going to ask you first, like, what have you thought of the heads up challenge, and has it been inspiring to you? And I feel like I found playing Redney VD and like handling his losses and everything. How did you perceive that?
So I mean, as a PLO player and a live PLO player, obviously I've always been a bit of a Phil Galfond fanboy. Not gonna lie. Like, always enjoyed watching like him play on streams in the past. So for me it was like, I don't know, maybe what it's like for a football commentator to commentate when Messi scores a goal, or like one of their like childhood heroes. I really appreciated his humility on breaking down how the challenge has affected him and his mindset up until now, because the thing is like, I don't know if like, say I had a time machine and I could go back to before I knew what poker was, and someone came up to me and gave me the option to not play, I don't know if I would play or not. And I think by Phil sharing how he has felt through this match. He is the elite. He's at the top of the food chain in the poker world, and he's still feeling the emotions, positive and negative. It's really good for people who are maybe considering taking poker up for a living to actually realize that it's not all rainbows and butterflies on the way up to the top, man. And I certainly thought that, it was just going to be plain sailing when I got into poker. When I quit school, I was just like, I'm going to make, 1,000, 1,500 a week and build up a roll. And in 5 years' time, I'll make 10K a week. Obviously young, dumb, and naive at the time. But the way that he's provided how his mind works, I think is really important, not just for people like me and you who are hopefully, maybe going to work our way to that level. I don't know what your goals are, but, I wouldn't mind working my way up, especially in live PLO, those stakes. So to just understand that gorilla mindset, and that it's not just a gorilla mindset, that he is a human being as well, and that we all feel like this at times. Like I said, like the last 3-4 weeks for me before I actually came to Kings and had this result, been super depressed, man, like super depressed. So just knowing that other people go through that, and that it's not just you're not alone in this world and in this industry. It's, I don't want to like feel good about someone else's downfall, but his honesty and humility has certainly made me realize that my emotions are in check, and that I'm not overreacting to certain situations that I found myself in. They're completely natural for me to feel that way sometimes, and to how to interpret them going forward.
I mean, to me, what you're saying is also that the reason why I also named this a little bit ups and downs of poker, because I knew a little bit about, that the cash influenced you quite a bit. Getting that upswing was pretty important to you.
Yeah.
So I knew that emotionally that changed quite a bit. And this is something obviously that will never stop in some vicinity. Like you're always going to be affected a little bit by the results. Like it's wishful thinking, I guess, to be completely unaffected by it, especially when you're doing this professionally. But at the same note, you can become better. You become a lot better to handling these losses. And they're this whole heads-up challenge and Galfond losing this match has been really inspiring in how he handled those losses. But also seeing that he has his limits as well. That he's not like, taking this like a machine and he can just handle it no matter what. That there is going to be a point where his game gets affected, being at a large downswing, and also potentially being outmatched. We don't know that. This is really something that also has motivated me to actually study heads up a bit more, because I think, look, I have the tools. They're right there in front of me to look at this heads up match hands. I have some showdowns, even if it's like maybe just 200-300 showdowns. I can go through them. And if
that's a lot of information. Yeah.
If I can go through all of them and I can try to simulate everything that I can simulate, I'm going to get a lot better. I'm going to understand the variance behind it, and I'm going to have some insight on what's actually happening. And this is something, as a commentator, if I'm going back to the commentary in March, maybe I can come back there with some better insights into actually understanding what's happening, or at least up to some level. Maybe not on an executional level, because again, poker and execution of it is a lot harder than the theory of it. So maybe on a theory level, I can come somewhere close, and on an execution level, you need to practice and also get yourself out there and play. But certainly super inspirational to me, and how he handled the losses, and at the same time quite telling and on where the limits of a human being can be when things are not going your way. And definitely super great to have that out there.
It's insane to have that, and it's for free as well. And I think it's very easy to see the guys at the top, like Stephen Chidwick is a prime example. Everyone like looks at Stevie Chidwick as like, this guy's a robot. And I felt the same about Ike Caxton. I felt the same about Phil Galfond. And to now see one of these perceived robots that, again, with the confirmation bias that we spoke about before, where I thought that in order to get to those stakes and to be a winning player at those stakes, I need to be an emotionless son of a bitch kind of thing, and just like not have a care in the world. And the reality is that is not true. But it's how, you know, you detach your emotions from the results when things aren't going your way or when things are going your way. Like, it's very easy in poker to, like my tournament, for example, just won 24,000, or to have a cash game session and win 10K and walk away from the table and think that you played well based off of where the pot got pushed or where the money went to. And the reality is that's not always the case. You know, I was saying to a close friend of mine the other day, because she doesn't play poker, but she was asking me about it. And, you know, she's asked me before, how did you get on? And I was tell her, oh, finished down 2K. And I was explaining to her, you know, just because I finished down 2K, I could have played some of the best PLO of my life, you know, but I still finished down like that. That's just the harsh reality of poker. And it's super important to kind of make sure that people are aware of that, not just that, like, people see the results. And obviously Galfond's down a lot. Don't get me wrong. He's down, what, 50 buy-ins almost, 45 buy-ins over 10K hands. Yeah. I think it's fair to say that there's got to be some edge there in Veni V's favor. But at the same time, Galfond is like, for him personally, he's like, I've got experience with this, playing this many hands against people. I want to play a little bit longer because I'm still not entirely sure. Like he said yesterday on Joey's podcast, he said, I could come back in March now. He said I could go on a 200K upswing and still quit the challenge, because he would then have the confirmation that, you know what, I'm going to have to put the white flag up and just admit that Veni's beating me at X amount of big blinds per 100. And just removing your ego from that situation and your emotions and being honest with your own capabilities is just going to help you succeed in poker.
You know, really what you would love to do if you had the option to, right? And there is what I love about the brain or basically in self-development, like the questions that you can ask yourself. Like, for example, one of the questions that I found the most valuable is the $100 million question. And it is, what would you do right now if you had $100 million? And with $100 million, you can do a lot of things, right? So, for example, I'm pretty sure that getting some insights on how, you know, like, you could hire the best people in poker to develop your poker game. And honestly, if I had like some insights into it, like I can do some work to get some insights into this heads up challenge. But, you know, I think if you had like infinite money almost, then you could almost buy that insight, right? You could, you wouldn't have to think about it. Like right now, it's totally unimaginable because of the amount of money that I have, right? But I knew that this is something that would interest me a lot, and I would be willing to actually spend a lot of money on if I had the money. So that is something, if you always think about deeply, okay, what would you do if you had infinite money? And then you then ask yourself, okay, but what can you do with your situation now that is going in a similar direction? And then pull that off and then remind yourself, well, this is what you got to do. Like, this is what is in your limits. You have the dream scenario and you have your reality. And your reality, you're looking for similarities to your dream scenario. And there are always some. And that, I think, is an approach that is make you crush at something you want to accomplish at some point. If you're actually reminding yourself every day. And there's been so many days the last year where I'm sure I haven't thought about it again. But you want to remind yourself again and again. And I think the Phil Galfond Heads Up Challenge is, for me, it has served a lot as a reminder about poker, about what I love about the game, and you know, the becoming experts. I felt some envy towards somebody like him actually being able to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars playing a heads up challenge, because I felt like, yeah, I would like to play there. Like, I would to be there and play, love to be there and play Venividi, and not having to worry at least about how it impacts my
losing
life.
900K.
Yeah, of course. Like, look at this guy, you know, he's crushing in life. Like, he's married. He has a kid, he's a father. Look, he's
a winner.
What is going to happen to him if he loses 900K? But also, you could tell when he's giving these interviews, like, he's totally excited to play, or he was. Maybe he's still somewhat excited to play. It's just something to also try and enjoy. Of course, if you like get mauled for this many buy-ins, maybe it's not as enjoyable. But at the same time, it's making yourself tougher as well.
It's a special breed of poker player. You know, you have the poker players that just study and they understand the game, and they're just good at the game, and then you have the type of like people like him that just love this shit. They love taking it to the streets. You know, like you get these guys, excuse me, who have studied the game theory and they follow the game theory note for note, you know, which is absolutely fine. Obviously, some of the best players in the world have done that. But you then get these slightly older school guys that have been around maybe 5 years longer, 10 years longer, who still have that, you know, 2008 just taking it to the streets type mentality where they just live for this shit. They just love sitting down, challenging anyone in Bobby's room or wherever it is in the world online, you know, back in the old, the high stakes on like heads up games back then. And I think that's just a very rare breed of poker player. And I think he's one of them. And I think all of the people from that generation are.
There's always a thin line right across, right? Where you at some point it's going to be like I recently actually met Isildur at the poker table. And this is also like, man, this guy's been playing a 3K, 6K heads up PLO or something, right? And of course he's sitting in your 25-25 game.
Yep.
Being, you know,
I know exactly.
He plays so quickly. It's so unreal how all of a sudden you're actually sitting at the same table or he's playing in some of the same games and just, you know, getting his role back in some way. But he's obviously crossed the line at some point. And the question is, how can you, like, there's still somewhat that draws us to people like Isildur. Yeah, that attitude of like, yeah, I'm gonna play anyone, right? But then you know, just still that other side, that conservative side that pulls you back when you need to, right? And I think having like that balance at some point is really important. And sorry to just quickly point out in the chat, 20 Pointer says there might not be similarities between reality and dreams. I think there's always some elements in there where, I mean, you can bring it up your example, maybe you can figure something out to change the perspective. But I think there's always at least something in your dream that you can you can somehow find in your current reality and work towards it. It might not be in a month, a half a year, but you eventually can work yourself way up there.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention about Isildur. It'd be very interesting, you know, if he does rebuild the role, whether he will go back to what he was doing before. You know, having like the $1 million swings kind of thing, or whether it will be like, okay, kind of like my story, you know, where I would literally make £1,000, head down to the casino, lose it all, then go back to work. And, you know, mistakes are there to be learned from. They're there for a reason. And, you know, I remember being taught as a kid that, listen, it's okay to make mistakes, but it becomes stupid when you keep making the same mistake over and over again.
Yeah.
So I would love to see him back on the top, but I would be so heartbroken to see him get back to the top and then drop back down again, like he has several times. Because he's just such a world class, and he's also a really nice guy. Like, I've got a lot of time for Victor. He's such a sweet person. And I would love to see him back at the top of the poker world again, especially because of how much he helped the great game. You know, like helped just get people excited about it, man. And I remember when he was here at Kings, playing in that 25-25 game. You know, it was quite overwhelming. You're like, holy shit! Like that's one of the people that I've looked up to playing the same stakes that I'm playing, kind of thing. So it's like, does that mean that I've made it, or he's dropped down, kind of thing?
Maybe
you know what I mean? Like, it's like, am I there yet?
Maybe that's again a little bit ambiguous, and you liking that encounter because of you praising yourself that you made it, etc. That's always in the back of my mind as well. But yeah, I see what you were saying there. Especially, I wouldn't like to see him like go up and then losing to a couple of online guys who basically kind of cheat in a way, getting their hand history pulled together and trying to exploit him in that way. Actually, that happens a lot in poker. I think I don't want to get like too much into this podcast because it's way too long of a topic. And I have some video ideas. I took a lot of notes on cheating in poker and like what people do to get ahead of themselves. So just to raise the awareness, I think I want to make a really good video about that. I've put in the notes down, and that's something that I think is important in poker, because people will go the extra mile when it comes to getting edges apart from the poker table that are, angle shooting or straight up cheating as well. So I think that's getting more and more important in the poker industry as the game becomes tougher. People are looking for other ways to get ahead, and we want to be really wary of those people and make their life harder. Basically, just not make it so easy for them, so they can take a lot of the poker money that we have in the industry as it goes to the wrong people. And the more awareness we're spreading, I think this is one of the best things you can do in poker right now. Spread awareness of how some people get ahead of themselves, and help people like stop that kind of behavior, because it's all about incentives in the end. We human beings, like if there's incentives for you, like let's say you're kind of a bad rag and you're financially not doing so well, and then you think of these other ways that you can get ahead, like cheating, and there's no incentives that are stopping you. What are you going to do? People are just people. Some people are just going to have that not the strength of character to resist that temptation. Again, maybe something that has to do with the willpower. Are you going to battle through with the good way, the right way, or are you going to go into the dark side and just listen to that, give in, and just do whatever you can do to go ahead? And there's a lot of naivety out there. People that are not seeing that. I mean, there's probably a lot more of those people than I can see, and I'm already very, very suspicious of people in general. I have a suspicious nature. It has been fostered also by my interest into how people get ahead of themselves
I remember you saying you dug deep into psychology before as well, and I think I actually think the two, both poker and psychology, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to say that they really do run side by side. So you could actually use what you've learned and studied from psychology to help you with your poker game, just by having a better understanding of especially a live poker player, like having a better understanding of the way people react to certain emotions and emotional intelligence in general. It's going to give you a bit of an edge, to say the least.
Yeah. What is the just to also give you some wrap-up questions, what is your favorite piece of literature, book or article or something inspiring that you've read the last few years?
Recently, I know I've been shoving this book down all of my friends' throats, and so there's two. David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me, just because he kind of taught me how to be honest with myself when it comes to trying to achieve things with commentary, poker, gym, fitness. And again, listen, I'm not saying that I'm now doing all of these things that I set out to do day after day, because there are days where I will still be lazy and I won't go to the gym, or there are days where I won't study. But the techniques that he teaches on just how to be honest with yourself and how to push yourself as a human being, I think are priceless. Like, I had the best year of my life last year, results wise. And I honestly think a lot of that came down to the book. I really do. The other book is Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy. That was the book that kickstarted my year last year, before I read David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me, because I still had very big ego issues at the table, going, like, just casino in general, sitting down and not respecting people based off the way they looked. Just having that like bias, like, oh, he can't be good at poker, he's 55 years old, kind of thing, and whatever. Like, he's got a poker tattoo on his left arm, and like, I just remove all of that bullshit from me. Like, now, like, I don't give it. Like, the guy that knocked me out of the tournament, like, everyone was like needling him with the hands that he played. Hey, he knocked me out. He made 15,000 euros more than me. Like, why are you hating on the guy, kind of thing? So just like treating everyone with respect until they give you a reason not to has helped my life massively with poker. Still got a lot to improve on. Like, I feel like I'm a bit of a pushover sometimes when it comes to helping people Like sometimes I spend too much time doing things for free where I could potentially be charging money, but I'm like, okay, like I'm going to help you with this.
Yeah.
So I do need to start still implement some of the lessons that David's tried teaching me through his book, but those are the two books that I'd read. So Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy, and David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah, both read those both, and these were also one of the earlier ones, at least last year. And actually, Ryan Holiday and Ego is the Enemy, I recommend that to some people like a year ago as well. Is one of the first books that I read before I rediscovered also Robert Greene's work and him writing about human nature. Basically, I found out a lot about that they have been doing work together. Like I think Ryan Holiday has been working for Robert Greene, also as a little bit of student, and Robert Greene has been his mentor. So after reading Ryan Holiday's book, the first one, Ego is Your Enemy, and also just raising my awareness from my own ego issues, and I've been more interested into what also Robert Greene had to say on human nature, and enjoyed his work a lot. Especially The Laws of Human Nature and Mastery, two of his most recent books. And I could recommend it a lot to poker players in general, just to work on themselves in general.
Yeah, I'll be sure to check it out. I haven't read any of Robert's stuff yet, so so make sure you drop me a message to buy them books.
Yeah, it's I think there's some great work there. Also, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh, who do you want to be in 5 years? Better question.
Who do I want to be in 5 years? I'm very conflicted at the moment. I'm not going to lie. I think it's been part of the reason that I've been a bit depressed, and part of the reason behind me traveling as well is like a form of escapism, because I'm not too sure where I want to be in 5 years' time. Like there's part of me that, with the network that I have at the moment, I have all the tools available to really become one of like the best PLO players in the world. Like I have the access to the information, it's just like utilizing that. And there's another part of me that's like, okay, listen, you're getting WSOP Europe, you're getting WPT, you're getting this event. Why don't you focus on just becoming, the next Nick Schulman? But then I look at Nick Schulman and I'm like, well, hang on. Okay, like 90% of commentators, the color commentators, are ex-poker players. They're no longer beating the games. But then you got the one GOAT that stands out, and that's Nick Schulman. And he is not only crushing commentary, but he's also walking the walk at the poker tables. He's playing the 100Ks, he's playing the 50Ks, he's winning, like he's playing the high stakes game in Bobby's room. And I'm like, if he can do that, then I can. There's a chance that I can balance both. And really just balance both and work hard, and actually work for it, and, not only use the tools that I've got to improve as a PLO player, but like reaching out to other commentators. And something I actually learned from a podcast that he did recently with, who was it with? With David and Dara on their podcast. He was like, he rehearses in front of a mirror. And I was like, really? I was like, I never thought Nick would rehearse in front of a mirror, like with notes and stuff. So then I started mimicking that. I started like every time I've had a stream since I heard that, instead of just jumping into the commentary booth and winging it, I've been taking loads of notes. I've been practicing, like my intros. Like, for a fact, when we did the Galfond challenge, I asked you, I was like, hey, Andreas, this is the introduction that I've got for you. Like, I was up during the night, like practicing
That's the introduction
game. Shout out to Run It Once as well for calling us both on. But yeah, man, it's really tough to say. But I obviously want to have a family. I want to make sure that my family have the access to being able to go like swimming, best school, whatever it is they want to do that I didn't have the opportunity to do. So my main focus, to be honest with you, is making as much money as possible from poker and commentary, but also, living the best life and being the best version of myself in 5 years' time.
Are you currently living with your girlfriend, or are you in like other places?
No. I'm in Malta. I'm in Malta with.
Yeah, but she's not there with you because she's in
no.
the UK. Okay.
Yeah. She's not. But yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, it's a great question as well, because like if I look back 5 years ago, and someone had asked me, "What do you think you'll be doing in 5 years' time?" If I had said I'm going to be doing commentary for these events, people would have laughed me out the building, man. Like
That
people
is
would have
always
just
a good thing. Yeah, that's always a good
yeah.
comparison. Yeah.
Like people really would have, like, if I said that, yeah, I'm going to be doing Galfond Challenge, WSOP, I'm going to be doing all the stuff for Kings, WPTs.
Don't
People are
never.
like,
Yeah.
they were like,
And
dream on, Henry, mate. You can't even beat 1-2.
I think
You absolute
I
bit.
think I think there it's extremely important. I mean, this has been a little bit too much all over social media and channels and people who are doing that. Like, yeah, you are the sum of the 5 people who are around you. But yeah, it's sort of true, right? Don't let those fuckers, tell you what you can't do, right? It's just not what they're just going to put their own limitations that they put on themselves already on.
That's
They're
very
going to
true.
protect it on you, and that's not who you want to hang out with, especially in poker. Like, you want to get rid of these people as fast as possible. If someone tells you, look, this you can't do, like, you want to get some good advice, and you want to also have somebody who plays the devil's advocate. If you are over the top and you think you can crush everyone and you're the best and whatever, you want to have somebody who says, hey, calm down a little, man. Okay. Go like this and this and this steps. But there's a difference between somebody, telling you, look, you got to work hard, you got to do these things, and giving you some realistic outsets, and not doing it with like a limiting belief, right, that is projecting on you. I think there's a very thin line that you can cross quickly, and it's something also that I think about in coaching a lot. Like, when I talk with students, is okay, I don't want to put limiting beliefs on them, but at the same time, I also don't want them to be too overly optimistic and realistic about like what they have to do right now to get where they want to be, and not have that attitude, right? I think that's a very hard thing to distinguish, and it's really important you get like the people around you that motivate you and root for you to win. Like that's the word I always lose. Like, I want to have people in my life that are rooting for me to win, no matter what I want, and and feel happy for you that if you accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I try to give that to people in my network as much as possible, and remind myself, look, this person has goals, and your friend here has ambitions, and said, try to also show that. And poker has made me sometimes a little bit unemotional, and I remind myself, look, some emotions are still important. Like, people want to also feel that you're rooting for them. You sometimes have to say it and not just think it. And
people that genuinely want you to do well as well, like that for me has just changed my life. Like, surrounding myself with people that have seen my success and they've been happy for me rather than be bitter about it, because I've had it before. I had it when I first started out, where me and a couple of buddies were struggling to build our bankrolls, and then I got this opportunity, and unfortunately I'm no longer friends with those people, because they tried dragging me back down when I was trying to like move my way up, and I was trying to move my way up with the intention of bringing them up with me, because that's what I want to do. Like, the people that I've got around me are around me for a reason, and that's because I love them. And if I'm gonna go through life trying to be the best version of myself and becoming better, I want that for everyone. I want to help the people that I love achieve that as well. So yeah, like managing, like finding people that see your success and are genuinely happy for you, you hold on to them motherfuckers, because like those are the people that you want around you for sure.
Who do you think would be a great fit that maybe in your network for the Poker Player podcast? Because you know a lot of poker players too.
For you, wow.
Yeah, hasn't been on the show yet. Like, Danfew has been on the Poker Player podcast.
I've got a very good friend. Do you want me to say it out on stream?
I don't know. You can tell me afterwards, okay? Like,
no. I don't mind saying it. So my friend Leo Worthington is MTT Red, comes from a cash game background, but he's had a very good year or so. I'll send you his details afterwards. Sure. But I think you guys will really enjoy talking with each other. You have very different opinions on certain subjects, and you also have like similar opinions on the same thing. And I think it would make for a very interesting podcast, because you're both obviously extremely good at poker, and he's currently traveling as well. So you could talk about that. He's been traveling for about a year and a half, 2 years now, and he's got a few opinions on some subjects that could cause some controversy. It could be a fun one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
are you saying that you've been talking with him about some controversial things that I've said, or
not what you've said. That Leo, when he believes something, he's not afraid to fight for it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I like that attitude.
So
I'm never backing down from a debate. Let's put it that way.
It could be a fiery one, man.
Yeah.
But no, he also loves.
Opinion. Yeah.
He also loves psychology as well, and the the emotions involved with poker, and like I said, like the psychology behind it. So I think he understands it a lot better than me, like you do. You understand it a lot better than me. So maybe having like two people like yourselves,
maybe I don't.
maybe I don't know, man. Like based off the way that you've like spoken about it, it seems like you have a better understanding of it myself. But yeah, I know he would be a fun person to be on. I had him in the booth for the Aquadrome high stakes PLO cash game, which included Leon the Wolf, a couple of other like names from Kings. It was like 200, 400, 800 pot limit Omaha. Mm-hmm. And he joined me for the festival. And we got a real, like, obviously he's a great friend of mine anyway, because I've known him for a long time. But he's also very good at commentary. But because of how focused he is on studying MTTs, he's struggling to find time to join me or like do commentary. So he's kind of just like, all right, Henry, go on, you go and focus on commentary and let me win all the tournaments, kind of thing.
Awesome. Where can people find you?
GTO Commentator or GTO _Commentator on Twitter and Instagram. I'm trying to put out more content this year. I really am. I shot a vlog for the WPT. Yeah, I shot a vlog. It's going to be released on YouTube on Monday, I believe. I mean, I don't know.
Really important to get on that platform, in my opinion. You're missing out doing the Instagram.
I don't know how people are going to respond to it. Like, it's a new thing for me. Like really using my time wisely and putting out content. So I am going to be, learning as I go along, because I've downloaded all the content. I've been speaking with Phil that I mentioned to you about like the editing side of it, and the quality looks much better on my phone than it does on a laptop. So I'm kind of worried about how it looks. But at the end of the day, look, it's trial and fucking error. Like if I publish it to YouTube and people don't like it, they're not going to like it, but I'm going to learn from it. So I don't mind. Okay. But yeah, GTO _Commentator. If I'm not in the booth, I'm at the airport, and if I'm not at the airport, I'm in Malta. So one of those places.
There you have it, guys. I want to thank you for joining me here on the Poker Player Podcast, Henry. It's been a pleasure, and maybe have you back at some point in the future, doing some pieces of content here. And yeah,
absolutely love it, man.
You have the last word.
No, thank you so much for having me on, Andreas. It's been an absolute blast to speak with a like-minded person like yourself about the different subjects that we spoke about. And good luck at the tables, dude. Hopefully bump into you before Vegas somewhere, I hope. But I'm sure we'll figure something out. But thanks for having me again, man. And thanks to everyone watching at home.